Other men my age own a plot of land, a house that doesn't leak, and a wife who still sleeps beside them. I own a shovel, a collapsing shack, and a reputation as the biggest fool in the valley. Let me tell you exactly how far I've fallen. 30 years I've chased treasure, panning the river until my fingers cracked, digging holes in every hill some drunk swore held silver, and I found nothing, not one coin's worth. Meanwhile, my rich uncle died and left everything to his poor widowed sister, my aunt, and before the ink dried, the merchants in town swindled her out of every last piece of it, and I got laughed out of the courthouse for even trying to help. And this morning, this very morning, my wife walked out the door with a traveling trader named Colm in front of the whole street because I couldn't dig her a simple well. 3 sentences. That's my whole life. Now let me show you the worst of it. The square smells of horse and bread, and I'm walking through it with my head down because I know what's waiting. It's market day. Every stall, every gossip, every soul in the village of Brindle is out and watching, and they all know before I even reach the middle of it. There he goes. That's Vesa, the shopwoman, leaning over her counter of cloth and cheap tin. Her voice carries the way a crow's does. You hear it before you see it, and you never want to. Shota the treasure hunter. Any luck today, Shota? Find a golden turnip in the dirt. Laughter. Not big laughter, worse. The small, easy kind. The kind that costs nothing and everyone can afford. I don't answer. I've learned that answering only gives them a second joke. Mira is at the far end of the square, my wife. I still call her that in my head, even though I already know from the cart loaded behind her that I won't be able to much longer. She's got her one good dress on, the blue one. I bought her 4 winters ago when I sold a river nugget I was certain would change our lives. It changed nothing. The nugget was fool's ore. The dress is all that's left of that hope, and she's wearing it to leave me. Colm stands beside her. Smug fellow, soft hands, a green coat, the kind of man who's never dug anything in his life and never had to. He's got his arm on the cart like he owns it, and he's got that little half-smile men wear when they've won something without earning it. Mira, I say. My voice comes out smaller than I want. Don't, she says. Just tell me why in front of them, if you have to. Just tell me. And she does. That's the thing about Mira. She was always practical, always honest to the bone, even when the truth was a blade. She turns and lets the whole square hear it. Why? She laughs. And there's no cruelty in it, which is somehow so much worse. Shota, I married you because your uncle was rich and you were his blood. That was the reason. The only reason. I waited through every hole you dug and every river you panned, and every night you came home with dirt under your nails and nothing in your hands. And the inheritance went to your aunt, and the merchants took it, and you did nothing but cry about fairness in a courthouse full of men who laughed at you. I feel the heat crawl up my neck. The square has gone quiet the way a crowd goes quiet when it's about to be fed. I asked you for one thing, she says, and now her voice cracks. And I realize she isn't only cruel, she's exhausted, worn down to the grain like an old step. One thing. A well, so I wouldn't have to walk to the river twice a day like a beggar. And you said you'd dig it, and you dug 3 feet, and then you found some cursed rock and gave up and went off panning again. 3 feet. Shota. You couldn't even do that for me. I would have. You wouldn't have. She says it flat. Done. Colm has a trade. He has coin. He has a house in Harrow with a roof that doesn't fall in when it rains. I'm 40 next spring. I'm not spending it in a dry shack waiting for a man to strike gold in a valley that's got no gold in it. Colm has the decency, at least, to look uncomfortable. Vesa does not. Vesa is delighted. She's got her hand over her mouth like she's shocked, but her eyes are shining. And I understand. I've understood for a while that half of this, maybe all of this, was Vesa's doing. Whispering in Mira's ear over the shop counter. Feeding her the trader's name, sharpening the knife and handing it over with a smile. Well, Vesa says loud to the crowd, can you blame the woman? A body's got to eat. And the last well this one dug. They say a lizard fell in and died of thirst waiting for water. The laughter comes big this time. It rolls over the square and over me, and I stand there in the middle of it, in my patched coat with my dead uncle's blood and no coin and no wife. And I feel something in my chest go very still and very cold. Mira climbs up onto the cart, Colm flicks the reins, and they roll out of Brindle toward Harrow with everything of hers packed in the back. And the last I see of her is the blue dress. And then the dust. I don't remember walking home, that's the honest truth. One moment I'm in the square, and the next I'm standing in my own yard, in the crooked square of dirt beside my crooked shack, staring at the shallow pit I abandoned 2 years ago. 3 feet of a well. The well she asked for. The well that broke us. There's still a shovel leaned against the fence where I left it, rust on the blade. And I look at that hole, that little grave-sized failure, and something in me, I don't know what to call it. Not sense. Not a plan. Grief, maybe? Grief needs somewhere to go, and my body only knows how to put grief into a hole in the ground. I pick up the shovel. I start to dig. It's stupid. I know it's stupid even as I do it. There's no water here. I hit hard rock at 3 feet 2 years ago, and that's why I quit. That's the very failure she threw at my feet an hour ago. There's nothing down there but stone and my own shame. But my hands don't care what my head knows. My hands just want to move. So I dig. I clear out the 2 years of leaves and rot that filled the old pit, and I get down to where I stopped, and I hit that hard gray rock again, the rock that beat me, The rock that cost me my marriage, and I don't quit this time. This time I attack it. I swing the shovel like I'm swinging at the whole village, at Vessa's crow voice, at Colm's soft hands, at the courthouse full of laughing men. At every year I wasted believing there was treasure in this valley when the only thing I ever unearthed was proof of what a fool I am. The rock cracks. Not because I'm strong, because I won't stop, and I keep going down. By afternoon, the whole street knows what I'm doing, because of course they do. Brindle has no walls between its houses and no walls around its business. Word travels faster than a dropped plate. They come to watch, not all at once. They trickle, the way people do to a fire or a hanging. First a couple of children, then their mothers, then the men off the fields, and finally Vessa herself. Because Vessa would never miss free entertainment. He's digging it again, she crows over the fence. Look at him. She leaves him for a man with a real trade. And what does he do? He goes and digs the well 2 years too late, for a woman who's halfway to Harrow. The laughter again. I hear it up out of the deepening hole like it's coming down a chimney at me. Dig, treasure man, a farmhand calls. Maybe you'll find her heart down there. Maybe he'll find his manhood. Careful he doesn't dig all the way to Harrow and pop up under Colm's bed. I'm crying now, I'll admit that too. I'm 4 feet down in a hole with dirt in my mouth and tears cutting clean lines through the filth on my face. And I keep digging, because if I stop I'll have to climb out and face them, and I would genuinely rather die in this hole than climb out of it in front of these people. That's how low I am. I'd rather be buried than seen. The crowd thins as the light goes. There's only so long you can laugh at a weeping man in a pit before your dinner calls you home. By dusk they've mostly drifted off, leaving just their voices behind in my head, which is worse company than the crowd ever was. That's when Darius comes. Darius is the one man in Brindle who never learned how to laugh at me, and I've never understood why. He's a plain fellow, honest as a fence post, not clever, but not once cruel. And he keeps showing up at my door with bad ale and worse advice like we're still boys. I've done nothing to earn it. I've pushed him off a dozen times. He leans over the pit with a lantern, because it's near dark now, and I've dug so deep I need the light. His broad, worried face floats up there in the glow. Shota, he says. Shota, it's blackout. Come up. Come to my house. Ada's got stew on. There's plenty. Go home, Darius. You've been at this since noon. Look at your hands. You're bleeding on the handle. I hadn't noticed the blood. He's right. The old shovel's worn my palms raw. I said, go home. She's not worth this, he says gently, and he means it kindly, and that's exactly why it lands like a slap. Mira. She's not, Shota. Don't kill yourself over a woman who... It's not about Mira. I don't know that's true until I'm shouting it. It's not go home, Darius. I mean it. I don't want the stew, and I don't want the lantern, and I don't want you standing up there pitying me like all the rest of them. At least Vessa laughs. At least she's honest about it. You just look at me like I'm something to feel sorry for, and I can't. I can't take that tonight. Go home. He's quiet a moment. The lantern doesn't move. All right, he says finally, soft. All right, Shota, but I'll leave the lantern on the fence post. Don't dig in the dark. You'll hurt yourself worse. And he goes, that, God help me, is somehow the cruelest thing anyone does to me all day. The kindness of a man leaving a lantern for a fool who screamed at him. I stand at the bottom of my hole and I press my raw hands against the cold stone wall and I let it out. All of it. The whole rotten day, in the dark where no one can hear. Then I pick the shovel back up. Because what else is there? 5 feet now, near enough. The rock down here is different. I notice it the way you notice things when your mind's gone numb and your hands have taken over. It's not the same dull gray I fought all day. There's a seam running through it, a band of harder, denser stuff, and when the shovel strikes it, there's no crack, no give. Just a bright, ringing scrape, metal on something that isn't ordinary stone. I stop. I've dug 1,000 holes in this valley. I know the sound of every kind of rock a shovel can meet. Sandstone crumbles, slate splits, granite shocks the bone in your arm. This is none of those. This is hard, and it's tight, and the shovel skips off it like it skipped off glass. I go down on my knees in the mud at the bottom of the pit, and I fetch the lantern down on its cord, and I hold it close to the wall where my blade struck. There's a scratch there, a long pale scratch where the steel caught, and under it, where I've knocked the dirt away. The rock is dark and dense and shot through with something that catches the lantern light and throws it back at me in a hard, cold, unmistakable glitter. Not fool's ore. I know fool's ore. I've been fooled by ore more times than any man alive. This is something else. My heart is beating so hard I can feel it in my raw hands. I bring the light closer, so close I feel its heat on my cheek, and I stare at the wall of the well I was mocked for digging. The well that cost me my wife, the well the whole village laughed at me over not 2 hours ago. And the shovel scrapes across the stone one last time, and the wall answers back with a scatter of tiny, brilliant points of light. I hold the lantern to the wall and the wall glitters back at me, and for a long, stupid moment I just kneel there in the mud and don't breathe. Because I know what fool's ore looks like. I've filled my pockets with it. I've carried it home in triumph, and had it laughed out of my hands by every assayer between here and the coast. Fool's ore is soft and yellow and greasy in the light, and it crumbles under your thumbnail like old cheese. and it's broken my heart so many times I could pick it out blindfolded. This is not fool's ore. I take my knife and I press the point against one of the little glittering seeds sitting in the dark rock. I lean my whole weight on it. The blade slips, it skitters off the crystal and gouges a line down the stone. And when I look at the crystal, there's not a mark on it. Not a scratch. The steel that dug through granite all day just failed to leave a single dent. There is only one stone in this world that laughs at a steel blade. Diamond. I sit back against the cold wall of the pit, and I look up at the ragged circle of night sky, 5 meters above my head, and I start to laugh. And then I clap both filthy hands over my mouth because the sound is coming out too loud, and I remember, all at once, exactly where I am. Let me tell you what I saw once. Years ago, back when I still believed the earth owed me something. I'd walked 40 miles to see a diamond. A real one, a cut stone, no bigger than a pea, set in a ring on the finger of a wool merchant's wife who was passing through the market town. I stood in a crowd and gawped at it like everyone else. The merchant let people look because letting people look made him feel large. And I heard a man beside me, an old prospector, the kind I dreamed of becoming, mutter what that little pea was worth. It was worth more than my house, more than my land, my mule, everything I'd ever owned or would own. All of it together several times over, one pea-sized stone, and I'm kneeling in front of a wall of them, not one. A seam. A band running through the rock as far as the lantern light reaches in both directions, studded with dark crystals, some no bigger than grains of sand, some, God help me, the size of a knuckle, raw and dirty and locked in the stone, but they are under my house. Under the well my wife left me for not digging. Under 30 years of being the biggest fool in the valley of Brindle, I searched every river in this country for treasure. It was 5 meters under my own feet the whole time. The laughing dies fast. It always does. And what comes after it? Kneeling alone in a hole at the bottom of the night is not joy. It's terror. Cold, clean, sobering terror, and it saves my life. Because here's the truth of my situation, and I make myself count it out loud in a whisper. The way I used to count coins that were never enough. I have no money. Not a penny. I spent the last of it on the ale. I didn't drink because Darius wouldn't leave. I have no allies. One man in this whole village doesn't laugh at me, and I screamed him off my property 4 hours ago. I have no protection. No walls. No lock worth the name. No weapon but a rusted shovel and a skinning knife. My shack is one room with a door that doesn't latch, and I have 100 enemies at my gate. Not enemies who hate me. Exactly. That would almost be safer. Enemies who despise me, which means they'll never suspect me, but who would slit my throat in a heartbeat for a fraction of what's in this wall, and feel they'd done the world a favor cleaning up a fool. Vesa. If Vesa learns there's a diamond seam under Shota the treasure man's dry well, the news is in every ear in Brindle before the bread's out of the oven, and by nightfall there are men with knives at my fence helping me dig. The farmhands who laughed at me today would be down here with picks tomorrow, and no court in the land would take the word of the village idiot over 20 honest neighbors about whose stone was whose. They robbed my widowed aunt of an entire inheritance in broad daylight, and laughed doing it. What do you imagine they'd do to me over this? I've seen how this valley treats a lucky man. There are no lucky men in Brindle. There are only men who got robbed, and men who did the robbing. So I sit in the dark and I think, and the thinking is the first useful thing I've done with my brain in 30 years, because for the first time in my life the treasure is real, and the only thing standing between me and it is whether I'm cleverer than I am foolish. I decide, kneeling in the mud, that I am going to have to be very, very clever, and that the very first thing I have to do, the thing that will keep me alive, is nothing. Here's the plan I build that night, brick by brick, in the dark, because I don't dare light more than the one shielded lantern. The greatest thing I have is not the diamonds, it's the disguise I already wear. The whole village believes I am a grief-mad fool digging a dry well 2 years too late for a wife who left me. That belief is worth more than a stone wall. As long as I keep digging this dry well, in the open weeping ridiculous, no one will ever look twice at what I'm hauling out of it in the dark. A rich man they'd rob, a madman with a shovel they'll only ever laugh at. My humiliation is my armor. I just have to be willing to wear it a while longer. So, I keep digging the well in daylight. Where they can see I make it a proper show. I let them laugh. Let Vesa crow. Let them believe I've cracked and gone chasing water in a stone that has none. The more the fool, the safer I am. And at night, in secret, I mine. Not fast. Fast is what gets a man caught. I pull the stones out slow, a small pouch at a time, only what I can carry hidden. I don't touch the big ones yet. A big raw diamond in the hands of a peasant is a rope around his neck. I take the little ones, the grains and the pea-sized bits, the kind of stone a lucky fool might actually have found panning if the story ever came to that. I don't sell here, not within 40 miles. I sell far away, in some market town where no one knows my face or my name or my reputation, where I'm just another dusty nobody with a few small stones to trade. I sell to more than one buyer so no single man sees enough to grow curious. I sell for far less than they're worth, on purpose, because a man selling diamonds too cheap looks like a man who doesn't know what he has. A lucky idiot. And a lucky idiot is beneath a serious thief's notice. And beneath value is still, for a stone like this, more coin than I have ever held in my 2 hands in my whole life. I say it to myself in the dark, and it steadies me like a hand on the shoulder. Sell low, look poor, stay a fool, live. That's the whole plan. Patience and disguise. The two things I have never once in my life managed to hold on to. I'm going to have to learn. Before the sky grays, I do three things. First, I take a scrap of the loose diamond-bearing rock, no bigger than my fist. Stone the seam is already shed, sitting in the muck at the pit floor. And I work the small crystals free of it with my knife, and the patience of a man who's discovered patience about 4 hours ago. It's slow. My raw hands bleed onto the stones. By the time I've a small pouch of them, maybe 24 little rough diamonds, none bigger than a lentil, my fingers are ruined and the east is going pale. Second, I hide the rest. I take an old cracked crock from the shack, the kind nobody would give a second glance, and I bury it under a flat stone at the very bottom of the pit, and into it goes every larger crystal I've pried loose in the night, the knuckle-sized ones, the treasures I don't dare sell yet. Then I heap muck and gravel back over the seam itself, dirtying the wall, dulling its glitter, so that if some fool did climb down here in the light, he'd see nothing but wet gray stone. A dry well. Just a dry well. Third, I make the well look worse. I haul up buckets of plain dirt and dump them at the rim in a sad, defeated heap. I let the pit walls stay ragged and hopeless. I stand at the bottom and look up at it the way a broken man would look up at a hole that ate his marriage, and I practice the face I'll need. The face of a man who found nothing, who has nothing, who is nothing. It's not a hard face to make. I've worn it for 30 years. I just have to keep wearing it now that it's finally a lie. I lower the little pouch of diamonds into the lining of my coat, where I've cut a slit and sewn a pocket against the seam with thread I stole from Mira's old kit before she took the rest. 24 small stones. My whole fortune and my whole death sentence riding against my ribs. I climb the rope out of the pit as the first birds start up, and I stand in my ruined yard in the gray light, filthy, bleeding, exhausted, and I look at my crooked shack and my crooked fence and the crooked valley beyond it, where 100 people are waking up who would kill me for what's in my coat. I hear a gate. Down the lane, Vessa's already up, sweeping her step, and she sees me standing there caked in mud. And of course she can't help herself. Still at it, treasure man, she calls. That crow voice slicing clean across the morning. Any luck? Strike water yet? Or is it gold this time? Is that mud gold, Shota? And here's where the plan begins. Here's my first performance, the first lie of the rest of my life, and everything hangs on whether I can sell it. I let my shoulders slump. I let my ruined face go slack and sorry. I look down at the mud on my hands like it's the only thing I have in the world, and I let a little of the real grief up into my voice. That's the trick. You use the true thing to sell the false thing, and I call back across the lane, hollow and broken. No luck, Vessa. No water. Just rock all the way down. I shake my head like a man who's given up. I don't know why I keep at it. I don't know why. She laughs, delighted, satisfied. She sweeps her step and calls to someone inside her house. He's out there in the dark digging his dry well again. The poor mad thing. And I hear more laughter answer her from the warm indoors, and I stand in the cold and let it wash over me. Laugh, I think, and I keep my broken face pointed at the ground so she can't see my eyes. Laugh at me, Vessa. Every one of you. Laugh as loud and as long as you like. There's a seam of diamonds under my feet as wide as my 2 arms, and going deeper than I've dug, and against my ribs there's more money than this whole rotten village will see in a year. And none of you, not one of you, will ever suspect a thing, because I am the biggest fool in the Valley of Brindle. And starting today, that is going to be the smartest thing about me. I pick up the shovel with my bleeding hands and I climb back down into the hole, out of sight, where I can finally stop performing and let myself smile. Down in the pit, out of the crow's sight, I let the smile fade too. Smiling is a luxury, and I have a lot of thinking to do before I can afford another one, because a plan sounds clean when you build it in the dark. In the gray morning light, with real problems standing in front of you, it starts to grow teeth. Problem, the first I can't sell in a day. The nearest town where nobody knows my face is Harrow, and Harrow is where Mira and Colm have gone. I'd sooner eat the diamonds than walk into Harrow and hand my ex-wife the story of the day. Shota the fool showed up at market flush with coin. No, Harrow is poison to me now. That means the next town is Delwick, and Delwick is a full day's walk each way, which means any selling trip is 2 days I'm not here, guarding a hole full of fortune that a single curious neighbor could stumble into. I chew on that one a while, crouched at the pit floor, and I don't like any of the answers, but I settle on this. I can't stop the village from being curious, so I have to make the curiosity boring. A man who digs a dry well every single day, rain or shine, weeping and hopeless, is a fixture. Furniture. You stop seeing furniture, but a man who digs some days and vanishes others, that's a mystery. And Brindle loves a mystery more than it loves bread. So on the days I'm gone to Delwick, I need a reason to be gone that's every bit as pathetic as the digging. The reason writes itself and it's ugly and I hate it, which is how I know it'll work. I'll let them think I've gone chasing Mira. A grief-mad fool who lost his wife to a traitor might well be seen walking the Harrow Road, or moping off toward the market towns to catch a glimpse of her, or drinking his sorrow in some faraway tavern where nobody knows him. Every day I'm away from Brindle with coin in my coat. I'm not a man doing suspicious business. I'm a broken husband too proud to be seen weeping at home. Vessa will feast on it. She'll tell the whole valley I've gone soft-headed pining after a woman who despised me, and they'll shake their heads and laugh, and not one of them will wonder what's really in my pack. I say it out loud to the wall of stone, testing how it sits in my mouth. Gone to see about my wife. It sits fine. It sits like the truth used. Problem. The second is worse, and it's the one that keeps me sitting down in the mud long after I should be up and moving. The seam doesn't stop at the well. I noticed it in the night and made myself not think about it because it was too much to hold along with everything else. But now, in the thin daylight leaking down the shaft, I can see it plain. The dark diamond-bearing band doesn't just cut across the bottom of my pit, it runs. It runs into the wall on the east side, sloping gently, heading. I trace it with a filthy finger, working the geometry the way 30 wasted years of prospecting taught me to, heading up and outward, toward the surface, toward the lane, toward the boundary of my own poor scrap of land, and past it. I sit very still with that, because if the seam runs shallow toward the boundary, then it doesn't only run under my house. It runs under the fence, under the lane, under most likely the fallow field beyond the field that belongs to nobody in particular. Common ground the village grazes goats on and nobody's ever wanted because nothing grows there. Nobody's ever wanted it, because there's nothing there but hard gray rock too near the surface for a plow. Hard gray rock, too near the surface. I put my head in my ruined hands and I laugh again, silently this time, shoulders shaking. Because of course, the same worthless rock that's made that field a joke for 3 generations is the roof of the very thing I've been searching my whole life to find. The whole village has been walking over it, grazing goats over it, calling it good for nothing, for as long as anyone can remember. Nobody dug because nobody digs where there's no water and no soil. Nobody dug but me, the fool, and only because a woman shamed me into it and grief wouldn't let me stop. The luck of it frightens me nearly as much as the diamonds do. Luck this large has a way of correcting itself. Men who find fortunes this size tend to find graves right after. So I add it to the plan, and it changes the shape of everything, and I make myself think it through slow before the wanting runs away with my sense. I cannot own that field yet. If Shota the Pauper suddenly wants to buy the worthless goat field, every soul in Brindle will want to know why, and the wanting to know is the exact thing that gets my throat cut. But I file it away. Someday, when I've coin enough, and cleverness enough, and God willing a friend or two who won't rob me, that field is the second half of this. For now it's a secret on top of a secret. And secrets are the only currency I've got that the village can't laugh out of my hands. For now, the well, the disguise, the slow drip of small stones to Delwick. Patience I don't have and will have to grow like a crop. I climb back up the rope before the lane fills with people, and I hide the rope and the false-bottomed cover I've rigged over the pit mouth. A hurdle of old planks, and brush that looks like a lazy man's half-effort to keep the goats out, and functions as a lid no one would think twice about lifting because who lifts a lid off a dry hole? Then I go into the shack, and I bathe the blood off my hands in the last of yesterday's water, and I look at what I've got by daylight for the first time. I lay the 24 small stones out on the table on a dark rag. In the honest morning light they don't look like much. Gray and glassy and rough, some cloudy, some clear, none of them cut. None of them shining the way that wool merchant's pea shone on his wife's finger. To an untrained eye, they might be river quartz, cheap glass, nothing. But I hold one up to the crack of light in the shutter, the clearest one, and I turn it. And deep inside the roughness, there's a spark that quartz has never had and never will. A hard, deliberate fire folded up small and waiting to be let out by a better man than me, with better tools than I own. I have no idea what these are worth. That's the plain truth, and it scares me. I know a diamond from fool's ore because a diamond eats a knife blade, but knowing a stone is real and knowing what to ask for it are 2 different countries, and I've never once set foot in the second one. If I walk into Delwick and ask too much, I mark myself. If I ask too little, well, too little is the plan, but there's too little, and there's giving it away, and I need to know the difference before I trade a single one. So I make myself a promise, sitting at that table with a fortune spread on a rag. The first trip I don't sell to make money. The first trip I sell to learn I take only 3 or 4 of the smallest, ugliest stones, the ones I could stand to lose. I find a buyer. I play the rube. I watch how his eyes move. I listen to the numbers, and I let him cheat me, and I count exactly how much he cheats me by. Every fool has to pay for his schooling. These 4 stones are my tuition. I wrap the rest back in the rag, and the rag in a strip of oilcloth, and the oilcloth into the crock, and the crock goes back down the well under its flat stone, deep where no light and no thief will find it. 4 small stones stay against my ribs. I stand in the doorway of my crooked shack and look out at the lane where the day's begun, and Vessa's already got a neighbor bent over the fence, the 2 of them glancing my way and laughing behind their hands the way they always do. I lift a hand and give them a sad, hopeless little wave, the fool being brave, and I watch them dissolve into fresh laughter. And I think, with a calm I've never felt in my whole failed life, wave back, Vessa. Enjoy it. Then I shoulder my empty-looking pack, put the broken face back on, and set out down the Harrow Road in plain sight of everyone, a grief-mad fool gone chasing after the wife who left him, with 4 diamonds and the whole rest of my life sewn into the lining of my coat. I walk to Delwick in a day and a half, and I spend the whole way rehearsing how to be stupid. That's not a joke. Being stupid on purpose is harder than it sounds. Your face wants to be clever. Your eyes want to look sharp when a man says a number you know is a lie. So the whole road I practice. The slack jaw, the too eager nod, the way a rube leans in when he should lean back. I practice looking grateful. Grateful is the mask I need most. A grateful fool is a robbed man who thanks you for it. Delwick is bigger than Brindle by 10 times, which is to say it's a real town, a market square with a proper fountain, 2 inns, a smith, and a whole crooked lane of dealers who buy and sell the kind of things a village never sees. Furs, spices in little twists of paper, old coins, and, if you know which door, stones. I don't go to the fine shops. The fine shops keep records and remember faces. I go to the market fringe, where the lights pour and the questions are fewer, and I find what I'm looking for at a plank counter under a stained awning. A squat, soft-handed man with a jeweler's loop on a string around his neck, and the patient, hungry stillness of a spider. His name painted crooked on his awning post is Pharaoh. I stand in front of Pharaoh's counter and I let myself look lost. "Help you," he says, not looking up from a set of scales he's fussing with. I found some stones," I say, and I make my voice small and doubtful. A man who isn't sure he ought to be here at all. Panning. "Up in the hills. A fellow told me, you might tell me if they're worth anything." "Probably nothing. Probably just glass." But I thought, everybody's got stones. Pharaoh says, bored, and now he does look up and his eyes do a thing I've decided to watch for. They measure my coat, my boots, my hands, before they ever get near my face. Poor his eyes decide. Desperate, he relaxes. "Let's see him then, Hillman." I fumble a bit, on purpose, and lay one of the 4 small diamonds on his black cloth. The ugliest of the 4. My tuition. He glances at it, doesn't reach for the loop. "Quartz," he says flat, already looking away, and I nearly say it. "It ate my knife blade. It's diamond and you know it." The words are right there behind my teeth, hot, because 30 years of being told my treasure was worthless has left a wound that this man just pressed his thumb straight into. But I swallow it. That's the whole game right there. In that one swallowed breath, I make myself look disappointed instead, crushed. "Oh," I say, "it's quartz. I thought it was so hard I couldn't scratch it with my—" Pharaoh goes still. It's tiny. If I weren't watching for exactly this, I'd have missed it. But his hand drifting away stops. His eyes come back to the stone. And now, only now, he picks up the loop, and he sets the little gray pebble in his soft palm and looks at it properly. And I watch the greed wake up in his face like a fire catching. "Where'd you say you found this?" he asks. "Casual. Too casual." "Up the hills, off the Brind." I catch myself, make it look like a nervous slip, and cover it wrong on purpose. Off toward the North Hills and the river gravel. There's more where, and then I stop, and let my eyes go wide. The fool who's just realized he's said too much to a stranger. That slip is a gift I'm giving him. Let him think the source is north. Let him think there's a river full of them. Let him spend the next year sending men north to pan cold water for diamonds that aren't there. Every hour Pharaoh wastes north is an hour he's not looking at a dry well in Brindle. "Might be worth a little," Pharaoh says, sliding the loop away, wearing the face of a man doing me a favor. "Industrial grade, cloudy, not gem stuff, you understand. Grinding stone, mostly. Not worth much, but I'll take it off your hands so you didn't walk all this way for nothing. 2 silver. 2 silver. I know. The way I know the sun's up. That even this ugly little stone is worth 20 of what he's offering. Maybe more. But I don't know it the way a merchant knows it. I don't know the numbers, the grades, the markets, the words. That's why I'm here. So I let my face light up like 2 silver is a miracle, because to show to the pauper, it's more coin than I've held since the fool's ore, and my hands actually shake a little, and the shaking is real, which sells it better than any acting could. 2 silver. I breathe. "Truly? For a rock." "For a rock." Pharaoh agrees, gracious, and counts the coins into my palm one at a time so I can feel the weight of each. The way you feed a dog slow to keep it loyal. And here's where I do the thing I came to do. I don't sell him the other 3. A grateful Rube would dump all 4 right now, thrilled with his luck. But I want to know if he'll chase me, so I close my fist on my 2 silver and I say, that's plenty. That's more than I hoped. I'll bring you the others another time. I want to think." "Got more on you?" Pharaoh says. And there it is, quick and sharp, the hunger showing its teeth. "Bring 'em out. I'll do you a fair price on the lot." "Next time," I say, backing off, playing skittish. "I have to, my wife, she." And I let the grief up, the true thing, and my eyes go wet. And Pharaoh's face does something complicated because a weeping hillman is bad for haggling. And he lets me go with a suit yourself, that I can hear him regretting already. I walk away with 2 silver, 3 diamonds, and the single most valuable thing in Delwick, the exact measure of how a professional cheats a fool. I don't leave town, that would waste the trip. Instead, I spend the next 2 days doing what I really came for. Learning, and it cost me almost nothing but my pride, which is a currency I've got in bulk. I go to the other dealers, not to sell, to ask. I play a different fool at each stall here, a widower spending an inheritance he doesn't understand. There a servant sent by a master to price a mistress's jewels, and I ask the questions a fool asks, the questions that would give me away in Brindle, but here are just noise. What makes a stone worth more than another? Why is that one worth 10 of this one when they look the same to me? What's this word? Water. What do they mean? A stone of good water. And the dealers, God bless their greedy hearts, they teach me. They can't help it. A man who knows a trade loves nothing better than showing off to a man who doesn't, especially a harmless one who might buy. Over 2 days, stall to stall, I learned more than 30 years of prospecting ever taught me. That the fire I saw in my clear stone has a name, and that clarity and color and the way a stone is cut can multiply its worth 10, 20, 100 times over. That a raw diamond and a cut diamond are 2 different animals with 2 different prices, and the difference between them is a man with a wheel and 40 years of patience. That industrial grade, the words Pharaoh used to rob me, means a cloudy stone fit only for grinding and cutting other, better stones, and that even industrial grade is worth real money. And that Pharaoh looked at a gem-clear diamond and called it grinding stone to my face without blinking. That the finest stones don't sell in market towns at all. They go up, to cities, to the capital, to jewelers who serve nobles, who serve the crown. That there's a whole country above Delwick Delwick, a country of wealth and rank I've never so much as glimpsed, and that somewhere at the top of it is a table where a stone from the bottom of my well could sit in a king's crown. I write none of it down. I've no paper, and honestly, my letters are poor. I do what a prospector does. I carry it in my head, the way I once carried the shape of every riverbed for 40 miles. And by the second evening, I know enough to be dangerous, not to sell for full value. That would give the whole game away. But to know exactly how much I'm choosing to lose, which is a very different and much safer kind of ignorance. Before I go, I sell the other 3 stones, not to Pharaoh. I want no one buyer seeing too much of me. I spread them across 3 different dealers on 3 different lanes, 1 stone each, and to each I play a slightly different fool, and from each I take a low, safe, unremarkable price that leaves them all thinking they got the best of a simpleton, and none of them thinking about where the simpleton came from or whether he had more. I walk out of Delwick with a small, real, honest weight of silver against my hip. Not a fortune, not yet, but it's mine, and it's clean, and it's the first coin I've ever earned that no one is going to laugh out of my hands. The Harrow road home takes me past the turn to Brindle, and just before the turn I stop, and I do the second half of the disguise, the part I dread. I muddy myself up, I hollow out my face. That's easy. I'm tired enough, and I put the broken husband back on, the man gone chasing his lost wife. And I walk into Brindle at dusk on purpose, right down the main lane, past Vessa's shop, looking like a dog that's been kicked off a doorstep in a far town. Vessa's out front, of course. She's always out front. She sees me, and I watch her decide, in half a second, exactly what story I am. "Well, look what crawled back," she calls. "Did you find her treasure, man? Did you go all the way to Harrow to weep on Colm's doorstep?" I don't answer. I let my head drop. I let her fill the silence because Vessa filling a silence is Vessa building my alibi for free. "He did," she announces to a neighbor, delighted loud enough for me in half the lane. "He went and stood outside their house like a stray. Oh, the poor mad thing. Off wandering the roads pining after a woman who couldn't stand the sight of him, and coming home to dig his dry well again in the morning. Mark me. Some men just can't be helped. That's it. That's the story now, and Vessa's told it. And Vessa's word is law in Brindle. Shota went chasing Mira. Shota's madder than ever. Shota's a fixture, a joke, furniture. Nobody in this village will wonder for one single moment why I walk the roads or where I go, or why I'm sometimes gone 2 days. They know. They've decided. And their certainty is the best wall money can't buy. I shuffle past her toward my crooked shack, and I let my shoulders shake like I'm crying, and behind the shaking I'm doing the only kind of laughing that keeps a man alive. That night, down the well, I hide the silver. Not in the crock with the stones. I've thought about this. Coin and diamonds in the same place is one theft away from total ruin. So I dig a second cache, a hand's depth into the pit wall behind a loose stone, low, where you'd have to already know to look, and the silver goes there wrapped in rag. The stones stay in the crock under the flat rock. 2 secrets, 2 graves, and only one man in the world knows both. Then I work. I've learned something in Delwick that changes how I mine, and it's this. I've been an idiot about the small stones. Pharaoh would have paid me next to nothing for the little clouded grains. Grinding stone, industrial pennies. It's the clear ones, the gemstones that carry the real weight. So I stop pulling everything and start choosing. I bring the lantern close to the seam and I sort with my eye the way the dealers taught me. Cloudy grain, set aside for cheap sale. Clear stone with fire in it. That's the true treasure. And I ease those out whole and unbroken and set them apart in their own twist of rag. Same labor, 3 times the value. Working smarter instead of just working. 30 years too late, but I'm learning. And while I work, I think about the water. Because here's the other thing eating at me. This prying stones out of a rock face by hand with a knife and a bleeding thumb. This is a fool's pace. I can pull maybe a pouch a night before my hands give out, and half of what I pry loose is fine dust and gravel I have to sift through by feel in the lantern light. If the seam runs the way I traced it, wide and deep and out under the goat field, then I could dig by hand for the rest of my life and never touch a tenth of it. But I panned rivers for 30 years, and a river doesn't dig with its hands. A river takes a whole hillside of gravel and sorts it, sand from stone, light from heavy, with nothing but moving water and time. I've watched it do it 1,000 times. I've stood knee-deep in it cursing my luck while the water quietly did the very thing I'm now trying to do with a knife in a hole. I sit at the pit floor with a handful of diamond gravel, and I let the water and the stone rearrange themselves in my head. If I could break the seam rock down to gravel, and it breaks, it's not so hard once the diamonds are freed of it. And if I could run that gravel through moving water on a slope, the way the river sorts a bank, the heavy diamonds would settle and the light muck would wash away, and I wouldn't be picking stones out by hand at all. I'd be letting the water pick them for me 100 at a time. It's just an idea in the dark. I've no river down here, no way to build such a thing in secret, no coin yet for the timber and the iron it'd take, and a wash table on my land would be a great deal harder to explain than a hole in the ground. It's a dream for a richer, safer Shota than the one crouched here bleeding into a rag. But I hold on to it. I've spent my whole life having ideas about treasure that came to nothing. This is the first idea I've ever had that comes after the treasure's already in my hand. That's a different kind of dream. That's a plan. I climb up before dawn, hide the rope in the cover, wash the blood off, and put the broken face on. I make 3 more trips to Delwick over the next weeks, and each one I'm a little less the tuition-paying rube, and a little more the careful, boring, forgettable seller I need to be. I never sell much. I never sell twice to the same man in a row. I spread the small, clear stones thin across the town, always for a fair but low price that raises no eyebrows. And the silver behind my loose wall grows from a handful to a real quiet weight. And on the fourth trip, it happens. The thing I've been dreading, the first crack in the disguise. I have a stone I'm selling to a new dealer, a lean, careful man named Orsk, who works out of an actual shop with an actual door, a step up from the awning men. I'd meant to avoid the shop, but this one clear stone is finer than anything I've moved yet. I couldn't help pulling it. It's got a fire in it that even my rough eye couldn't ignore. And the awning men would have cheated me blind on it, or worse, remembered it. So, Orsk takes the stone, Orsk puts the loop to it, and Orsk goes very quiet for a very long time. "Where did you get this?" he says. Not casual, the way Pharaoh was casual. Careful, slow, the voice of a man who already knows the fool story is a lie and is deciding what to do about it. Panning, I say, and I hear my own voice. And it comes out one hair too smooth. I've gotten better at this, and getting better is its own danger, because a true rube stammers. North Hills, river gravel. Orsk sets the stone down on the black cloth between us. He doesn't push it back to me. He looks at it, and then he looks at me. Really looks. The measuring look. The coat and the boots and the hands. And I watch him fail to make the sums add up. Because the coat is a pauper's, and the hands are a laborer's. But the stone on the cloth is not a river stone. River tumbled diamonds are rounded, worn, frosted. This one has clean, broken faces. This one came out of hard rock, out of a seam, out of the ground, and a lean, careful man who has handled 1,000 stones knows the difference on sight. River gravel, Orsk repeats, soft. And the two words hang there, and both of us know they're a lie, and both of us are pretending we don't. You know, he says, turning the stone with one finger so its fire catches the shop's good light. A stone like this doesn't come out of a river. A stone like this comes out of a mine, and there's no diamond mine in this whole kingdom, Hillman. Not one, so I have to wonder. I keep the broken face on. I make my eyes go blank and stubborn, the fool who doesn't understand the trap he's in. But inside, I've gone cold and fast and clear, the way I did that first night at the bottom of the well, because everything, the silver, the seam, the plan, my life, everything is suddenly balanced on the next thing that comes out of my mouth. And Orsk is watching me the way Pharaoh watched the knife blade skate off the stone. I have to wonder, Orsk says quietly, just where a mud-poor hillman found himself a mine. I have to wonder just where a mud-poor hillman found himself a mine. The whole plan lives or dies in the space after those words. And I know it, and Orsk knows I know it. And the only thing that saves me is that I've been the village fool for 30 years and I know that mask in my bones. So I do the last thing he expects. I laugh a wet, broken, hopeless laugh. And I sit down on the stool by his counter, like a man whose legs have given out. And I put my face in my hands. A mine, I say, muffled, bitter. A mine, God's teeth, if only. And I look up at him with real tears, because the true thing is always right there when I need it. You want to know where I found it? I found it in the dirt behind my house. In a well I dug because my wife left me for not digging it, and now she's gone anyway. And I've got a hole and a handful of pretty rocks, and a whole village that laughs at me every time I lift a shovel. That's my mine, sir. That's my whole mine. One rock in a wet hole. You think if I had a mine, I'd be selling one stone at a time to a stranger in Delwick? You think I'd be wearing this coat? Every word of it is true. That's the beauty of it. I don't lie to Orsk at all. I just tell him the truth and let him hear it as a madman's raving. A man with a diamond seam would never say I found it in a well behind my house. Only a fool too broken to protect himself would blurt out the exact truth to the one man clever enough to see through a lie. Orsk studies me a long moment, and I watch the sums in his eyes shift. The coat, the hands, the tears, the too honest confession, and land. Finally, on the answer I've handed him. Lucky idiot. A grief-cracked peasant who stumbled onto one freak stone in his yard and doesn't understand what he's holding. Not a mine. A fluke. A man to be robbed gently and forgotten. One stone, he says. Not a question anymore. There were a few little ones, I mumble. Cloudy. I sold those. This was the last good one. I don't want to sell it. Honestly, it's the only pretty thing I've ever found. But I'm hungry, sir, and it's just a rock. Orsk names a price. It's low, insultingly low for the stone, a fraction of its worth, and it's exactly what I want, because a fair price would mean he thinks I know what I have, and a low price means he's decided I don't. I take it grateful, shaking, thanking him, the fool leaving with his coppers. But at the door he says, mild, if you find any more pretty rocks in that well, Hillman, you come to me first. Only me, I'll treat you fair. Yes, sir, I say. Thank you, sir, and I mean thank you, but not for the reason he thinks, because Orsk has just told me the most important thing I've learned all season. I am too good at this now. I've gotten smooth as a crack in the wall. From this day I sell smaller, cruder, less. No more fine stones to careful men in real shops. The awning men and the grinding grade for me, low and slow and boring. And the good stones go back in the crock to wait for a day when I've got walls and men, and a story strong enough to explain them. I walk home and I resolve all the way to be more careful and less clever. Being clever nearly got me killed. Being consistently, reliably, forgettably dull is going to keep me alive. So that's how the next stretch of my life goes, and I'll tell it fast because it's the same thing over and over, which is the whole point. Sameness is safety. I refine the hand mining until it's a proper secret craft. I rig a real ladder down the shaft. notched wood I can pull up behind me and lay flat where no one would find it. I build a false well cover, a proper one this time, a heavy hurdle of planks with a lattice of brush woven through it that looks, to any eye passing the fence, like a lazy man's failed lid over a failed well, and lifts on a hidden pivot when you know where to press. I dig by lantern at night, only at night, and I've learned to work in near dark by feel, so that even the light doesn't give me away. A glow from a dry well would draw questions I can't afford. I sort as I go. Cloudy grain in one twist, firestones in another. The grinding grade goes to Delwick and Dribs. The good stones go in the crock and the crock grows heavy. And I stop letting myself look at it too long because wanting to spend it is how a poor man gets caught. Silver behind the loose stone grows too, slowly, boringly, beautifully. And above ground every single day, I dig the dry well. I make sure of it. Rain, cold, my hands cramping. I go out there in daylight where they can see and I dig. And I let my face be hopeless. And I let Vesa crow. And I've gotten so good at the performance that some days I forget I'm performing and just dig, empty and sad. A broken man doing a broken thing. And those are the best performances of all because they aren't performances. The village settles into my lie like an old chair. Shota the mad, Shota the treasure fool, still at his dry well, still wandering off to weep after his wife. Poor thing, poor mad thing. I've become part of the scenery of Brindle, and nobody looks hard at scenery. It's exactly what I wanted. It's also, God help me, the loneliest I have ever been in my life. Because here's the thing, no one warns you about a secret this size. It isolates you more completely than any poverty ever did. When I was just poor, I could sit in Darius's kitchen and drink his bad ale and be a man among men, even a laughed at one. Now I can't. Now every friendly word is a risk. Every open moment a crack in the wall. I can't tell a living soul the one true thing about my life. I go down into the dark alone every night, and I come up alone every dawn, and I perform grief all day for people I despise. And the only company I keep is a hole full of stones that would get me killed if anyone knew I had them. I am the richest man in the valley of Brindle, and I am starving for one honest conversation. And there is no one I can afford to have it with. I think about Darius. Of course I think about Darius. The one man who never laughed. The one man who came with a lantern and left it on my fence post when I screamed at him. But I've pushed him off so many times now that he's stopped coming. And part of me is glad, because a friend is a mouth, and a mouth is a leak, and I can't afford a leak. The other part of me sits alone in the dark with a fortune and grieves for the ale I'm too rich to drink. And then I drop a stone. It's such a small thing. That's what undoes you in the end. Never the great danger you planned for. Always the little one you didn't. I'm on the Delwick Road, 3 good firestones in the coat, and a fair weight of grinding grade in the rag. And I stop to shift a pebble out of my boot at the edge of a wood where the road runs close to Brindle's own fields. I set the coat down on a stump. When I pick it up, the sewn slit in the lining has worked open a thread. The thread I stole from Mira's kit worn through, and I don't feel it, don't hear it, don't know it, and I walk on. A mile down the road, I reach into the lining out of habit to feel the weight against my ribs. 2 stones. I stop dead in the middle of the road and my whole body goes cold. I count with my fingers, frantic, disbelieving. 2. There were 3. There were 3 firestones, good ones, clear ones, the exact kind of stone that made Orsk go quiet and say the word mine. And now there are 2, and the third is somewhere on a mile of road behind me, lying in the dirt, glittering, waiting for anyone in this whole world to bend down and pick it up. I run back. I run the whole mile, and I search that stump, and I search the road, and I search on my hands and knees in the ruts, and the leaves, and the ditch grass, until it's too dark to see, and my fingers are raw, and I'm sobbing, actually sobbing, because I understand exactly what one dropped diamond means. It's not the loss of the stone I've stones to spare. It's that a fire-clear diamond found on the road near Brindle is a question mark hanging over the whole valley, and questions kill me. If a farmhand finds it, if a child finds it, if it goes to Vesa, if it goes anywhere, someone starts asking where it came from, and the answer to that question is a hole behind Shota's shack. I search until full dark and I don't find it. It's gone. Someone has it, or the earth has it, and either way, I've lost control of my one secret for the first time since the night I found the seam, and I walk home shaking with a fear that makes every fear before it feel like nothing. Here's what I don't know. Walking home in the dark, sick with dread. 2 days earlier, Darius had gone out to the same wood. He does that. He goes out and digs, not for treasure, not really, not the way I did. He digs because his old friend Shota is a treasure fool, and Darius, in his plain loyal way, has half convinced himself over the years that maybe there's something to it. Maybe if he turns over enough dirt, he'll find something that'll make Shota smile again, something to bring him out of the dark place he's crawled into since Mira left. It's the kindest, most useless thing a man can do, and Darius does it because he doesn't know what else to do for a friend who won't be helped. And that day, a day before I ever dropped mine, Darius, poking through the leaf mold and the roots at the edge of that same wood, found a stone, a pretty gray pebble, hard, glassy, with a strange little fire in it when he held it to the light. He didn't know what it was. He thought it was quartz, or maybe just a lucky-looking rock. But it caught his eye, and it made him think of Shota, of the one thing Shota had ever loved, chasing pretty stones, and Darius had thought, with that big, simple, hopeful heart of his, I'll show it to Shota. He'll like it. Maybe it'll cheer him up. Maybe he'll want to go looking with me, the two of us, like when we were boys. Maybe it'll bring him back. And he'd walk to my door with the stone in his fist. And I hadn't been there off to Delwick, so he'd waited. He'd come back the next day, and the next, that pretty pebble warm in his pocket, waiting for his friend to come home, so he could show him the lucky rock he'd found. He has no idea, that's the thing. He has no idea that the pebble in his pocket is a gem-clear diamond worth more than his house. No idea it came from a seam a mile away under my well. No idea that he has been carrying, for 3 days, the one object in the world that could unravel my entire life. He just wants to show his friend a pretty rock and maybe, God help him, get his friend back. I come home the next evening, gutted, half decided I'll have to abandon everything, run, disappear before the dropped stone surfaces, and Darius is sitting on my step in the dusk. I stop at my own gate, and my heart drops into my boots, because I can see, even in the failing light, that he's holding something in his closed fist, turning it over, watching for me. Shota. He stands up, and his broad, honest face splits into a grin, and it's a grin I haven't seen aimed at me in months, since before Mira. Since before all of it. There you are. God, I've been waiting days. Where do you get to? Never mind. Look what I found. He opens his fist. There it is, in his palm. Gem-clear fire, in the heart of it, catching the last of the light. I don't even know for a moment if it's mine or his. It doesn't matter. What matters is it's a diamond, and it's in Darius's hand. And Darius is standing in my yard holding my secret like a lucky penny and grinning at me. Found it in the wood, he's saying, happy, oblivious, off the Delwick Road, just lying in the leaves. Pretty, isn't it? Made me think of you and your rocks. I thought maybe we could go out looking together like we used to. You always had the eye for it. I thought it might. And he falters, because he sees my face now, sees whatever's happening on it, and his grin wavers. Shota, you all right? You've gone white as milk. And I stand there at my gate with the whole rest of my life hanging on the next thing I do. I could lie. I've gotten good at lying. I could say it's quartz, take it off him with a laugh, hand him a copper for his trouble, send him home none the wiser, and my secret would be safe, and I would be alone. Alone in the dark for the rest of my life with a hole full of stones and no living soul to say one true word to. Or I could really look at the one man in the whole valley of Brindle who never once laughed at me, who brought a lantern, who kept a pretty rock in his pocket for 3 days, just so he could try to make his broken friend smile, who's standing in my yard holding a fortune he doesn't understand, wanting nothing from me but my company. I look at his face, that plain, worried, hopeful, loyal face, and I make the biggest gamble of my life, bigger than the well, bigger than Orsk, bigger than all of it, because I'm so tired of being alone, and because if I can't trust this man, then there is no man on earth I can trust, and a fortune with no one to share it isn't treasure. It's just a heavier kind of grave. Darius, I say, and my voice cracks, and this time I don't fight it. Come inside, bring the rope up from the well, and don't say a word to anyone, not one word, not ever, until I've shown you something. His grin comes back, uncertain, curious. Shown me what? I look at the diamond in his palm, then I look at him. What that really is, I say, and where it comes from, and why, if you can keep a secret. Neither of us is ever going to be poor again. I take him down the well. I light the lantern at the bottom. The first time in all these months I've lit it full and bright, and I brush the muck off the seam with my hand, and I hold the light up to the wall so the whole band of it catches fire at once. 100 points of hard, cold light running off into the dark in both directions. Darius doesn't say anything for a long time. He just stares. His mouth opens and nothing comes out. He reaches out one thick finger and touches the wall, touches the fire in the stone, and pulls his hand back like it burned him. Shota, he whispers. Shota, what is this? That, I say, is what your lucky pebble is. There's a river of them under the whole field. It runs out past the goat common, I think, out under the fallow ground nobody's ever wanted. I found it the night Mira left, the night I dug the well she'd been begging for. I laugh and it echoes up the shaft. The whole village laughs at me for digging a dry hole. Darius, I've been the richest man in the valley for half a year, and you're the only living soul who knows it. He turns to look at me, and his eyes are wet, and I brace myself. For greed, for fear, for the thing men become when you show them a fortune. But this is Darius, and what comes out of him isn't greed at all. You've been down here alone, he says. Not who owns it, not what's my share, not how do we sell it. Just, all this time, every night, alone in a hole with this, and you couldn't tell a soul. His face crumples with something that isn't envy. It's grief. For me. God, Shota. No wonder you've been like a ghost, carrying this by yourself. He grips my shoulder hard, the way he used to when we were boys. You daft, stubborn fool. You should have told me the first night. You'd not have to carry it alone. And I stand at the bottom of my well, in the light of my own impossible fortune. And for the first time since I struck that stone, for the first time in longer than that, longer than I want to count, I am not alone. Swear it, I say, my voice rough. Swear you'll not tell. Not Ada, not anyone. It's death. Darius. If this gets out, they'll take it all and put us both in the ground and laugh doing it. You know this village, swear it? I swear it, Darius says. And I've known this man 30 years, and I have never once heard him lie, and I don't hear a lie now. On my life, Shota, on my life, nobody hears it from me, ever. He looks back at the glittering wall and then at me, and slowly, wonderingly, that big grin comes back. Different now. Ours now. A secret shared instead of a secret carried. So, he says, partners then? I put out my hand, filthy and diamond dust caked, and he takes it. Partners, I say. Two of us now at the bottom of a hole, against the whole valley of Brindle. For the first time, I like our odds. Two men can do what one man can't. And the first thing we can do is stop nearly dying every trip. That first night, sitting at my table with the lantern low and the crock open between us for the first time in front of another living soul, Darius and I split the work the way you'd split a field. I'd been trying to do everything alone. Mine, sort, guard, sell, walk 2 days to Delwick and 2 days back with a fortune on my ribs, and no one watching my back. And every single one of those jobs was a chance to die, and I'd been running all of them at once, exhausted, sloppy, dropping stones on roads. You dig, I watch, Darius says, turning it over in his slow, careful way. Or I dig, you watch. Either road, one of us has eyes up top while the other's down the hole. Nobody creeps up on a man with a lookout. And the selling, I say. That's the killing part. That's where the stone left my coat. A man walking alone with diamonds gets robbed and no one ever knows. But 2 men on a road. 2 men on a road is just 2 men. Darius finishes. Nobody robs 2. So that's how we build it. Output doubles overnight. One down the well working the seam by lantern while the other sits up top in the dark with a cudgel, minding the lane, and we trade places when hands cramp. And where I used to be gone 2 whole days to Delwick with everything I own strapped to me, now we work a circuit. Darius has kin scattered in 3 towns, a cousin in Delwick, a wife's brother in a place called Marsh Cross, an old friend of his father's out toward the coast road. 3 towns, 3 markets, 3 sets of buyers who never see each other. We spread the sales thin across all 3, never much in any one place, never twice in a row to the same dealer, small clear stones and grinding grade only, always for that low forgettable price. What one buyer sees is a trickle. What the 3 of them together are actually moving would raise the hair on the back of any careful man's neck, but no careful man ever sees the 3 together, because we made sure of it. That's the trick I learned bleeding on Orsk's floor, turned into a system. Don't be smooth. Be scattered. Be a dozen small dull nobodies in a dozen small dull towns instead of one clever man anywhere. The silver behind the loose stone stops growing by handfuls and starts growing by weight. We dig a 3rd cache for it, then a 4th. We start having a rich man's problem, which is where to put the money. And I'm not laughing when I say it's a real problem, because coin has to go somewhere. And a poor man's hovel with silver hidden in 6 holes is a robbery waiting to be discovered by the first person who wonders too hard. Having Darius changes something I didn't expect though, and it's not the work. It's that I have someone to think out loud with. For half a year I've carried every plan alone in the dark, and a plan you can't say out loud goes sour, curdles, starts to feel like madness. Now, sitting across the table from Darius after a night's work, I can say the mad things and hear them back. And Darius, he's not clever the way I am. He'll tell you that himself. He can't grade a stone or read a dealer's eyes, but he's got something I lack, which is that he's honest all the way through. And honest men see a certain kind of danger that clever men walk right past. The trouble's not the digging, he says. One gray dawn, both of us worn out, the crock heavier by another night. Or the selling, now we've got the circuit. The trouble's her. And he tips his head down the lane toward Vessa's shop. He's right. He's exactly right, and I'd half known it and half refused to look at it, which is what a man does with the danger he can't yet solve. Because Vessa has started to notice. Not the diamonds. God, no. She'd never dreamed that far. But the small wrong things. Darius traveling too much. A man with a farm doesn't ride to Marsh Cross on the coast and Delwick in a season. Not for nothing. Me buying odd tools when the whole village knows I haven't a copper, a good rope, a lantern's worth of oil, a saw. Little purchases that shouldn't be possible for 2 mud-poor men, appearing where there ought to be nothing. Vessa runs the shop. Vessa sees what people buy and what they can't afford. And Vessa's whole trade is noticing and telling. She was on me yesterday, Darius says. Sweet as poison. Off traveling again, Darius. Where's a farmer find the time? And the coin? And then, he grimaces, and you thick as thieves with mad shota these days, the 2 of you. Funny, that. Man goes soft in the head, and suddenly he's got a friend and a full pack. I feel the old cold drop through me. This is exactly the crack I've feared since Orsk. But Orsk was a stranger a day's walk away. Vessa is 50 feet from my well, and Vessa's suspicion is a spark in a dry village that despises me. If she starts genuinely wondering, if she starts watching, if she gets one neighbor to follow Darius one time, we can't threaten her. I say, thinking aloud, testing it. Can't buy her off, coin's the very thing that confirm it. Can't hurt her. God no, says Darius appalled, which is why I love the man. We can't stop either, so we can't fight her. I turn it. This is the thing I'm good at. The one thing. The thing that's kept me alive. Not strength. Never strength. But finding the angle a straight-on push would miss. We can't stop her looking, Darius. But we can decide what she sees when she looks. He frowns. How's that? And the whole shape of it comes to me at once. And I nearly laugh because it's beautiful and it's cruel, and it turns the very thing that's been my wound into my wall. She already thinks I'm mad, I say slowly. The whole village does. We built that, I built that, half of it, on purpose, and half of it's just true. So let's not fight the story, let's feed it. Let's make me so obviously, ridiculously, pitifully insane that any strange thing either of us does reads as another symptom of poor mad shota, not a clue to anything worth digging into. You don't investigate a madman, Darius. You laugh at him and you go home. Vessa's watching for a secret. Let's make sure that everything she sees is just sadness. Just a broken man's craziness so thick she chokes on it. So we build the lie deliberately the way we built the selling circuit, brick by careful brick. And it's the finest piece of work I've done yet, because it costs almost nothing, and it turns my enemies into my alibi. The story we seed through the one channel that carries anything in Brindle, which is Vessa's own gossip, is this. Grief has finally cracked Shota clean through. He no longer digs the well hoping for water. He digs it because he has become convinced, mad, poor mad thing, that there is treasure at the bottom. Buried gold, a hoard. He's told Darius, his one remaining friend, in confidence, and Darius, loyal soul, is too kind to tell him it's a delusion, and instead just humors him. Goes along. Even travels to sell off Shota's little worthless rocks in far towns because Shota believes they're precious, and Darius hasn't the heart to say otherwise. Every piece of it turns a real clue into a symptom. Darius travels. He's pawning a madman's pebbles to keep the madman calm. I buy odd tools, a lunatic outfitting his imaginary treasure hunt. The two of us thick as thieves, a loyal fool nursemaiding a broken one. Every single suspicious thing, refitted as evidence not of a secret but of insanity. And here's the wicked heart of it. The part I know will work because I know Vessa in my bones. It's a better story than the truth. It's a funnier story. It's a crueler story. It's exactly the story Vessa most wants to tell because it lets her mock me and pity me and feel superior all at once. And it makes her the clever one who saw through poor mad Shota. A person will always choose the story that flatters them over the story that's true. I'm not going to make Vessa believe a lie. I'm going to hand her a lie she'd rather believe than dig for the truth. We seed it carefully. Darius, in confidence, lets it slip to his cousin, who's the sort that talks. I do my part in the square. One afternoon I climb out of the well and stand at my fence with a handful of ordinary gravel, staring at it in the light with a mad-wrapped hopeful joy, muttering, it's close, I can feel it. The gold's just below the rock, loud enough for a passing neighbor to hear and go pale-faced back to Vessa's shop with it. It's the ugliest thing I've ever done, performing my own madness for an audience that already despises me, letting them think grief has eaten my mind. Some part of me dies a little each time, but I've learned the trick of it by now. You use the true thing to sell the false thing, and the true thing under the performance is that I really am a broken man who really did lose everything, and really does go down a hole in the dark alone every night. And that truth bleeds up through the act and makes it real. It works. God does it work. Within a fortnight, the story has swallowed the valley whole. I hear it come back to me changed and grown, the way gossip does. That Shota talks to the well now, that he's dug so deep he's looking for the devil's gold, that Darius has taken pity on the poor mad thing and looks after him like you would a simple child. Vessa tells it best of all, delighted, in the square, to anyone who'll stand still. Treasure, at the bottom of a dry well. Can you imagine? And Darius, bless him, riding all the way to the coast to sell the man's pebbles so he won't cry. The mad leading the daft, the pair of them. And she laughs, and the village laughs. And nobody, not one soul wonders anymore why Darius travels or where our coin comes from, because they have a better answer now, a funnier answer, an answer that makes them the clever ones. The wall is built, and Vessa herself carried every stone of it. There's a moment a few nights after the story's taken that I want to set down, because it's one of the good ones, and there haven't been many, and a man ought to keep the good ones where he can find them. Darius comes over after dark with a jug, the bad ale, the same bad ale he used to bring before I screamed him off my step. And we don't work that night, we just sit. The crock's put away, the well's covered, and for one evening we're not partners guarding a fortune. We're just two men who've known each other since they were boys, drinking bad ale at a crooked table. You know what's mad? Darius says well into the jug, grinning. The real mad thing? It's all true. There is treasure at the bottom of your well. There is gold better than gold. And the whole valley's laughing themselves sick at the lie, and the lie's the truth, and they'll never, ever know it. He wheezes, delighted. Vessa telling the coast road you're chasing devil's gold. And you are Shota, you daft old fool. You actually are. And I start laughing too. Really laughing. The kind I haven't done in a year. The kind that hurts your ribs. And the two of us sit there in my crooked hovel that's got more wealth under its floor than the lord of the district owns, cackling like a pair of idiots at the enormous joke of it, at the whole valley that mocks us and props up our secret in the same breath. Poor mad Shota, Darius says, raising the jug. To his loyal daft friend, I answer, and we drink. And for one night I'm not afraid, and I'm not alone. And I'm not performing, I'm just happy. It's a small thing, it's the biggest thing I've had in years. Then Darius wipes his eyes and gets serious, the ale making him honest even for him. Shota, what do we do with it, truly? We can dribble stones to Delwick till we're old men. But you said yourself, the crock's full, the silver's in 6 holes, and it's all still in the ground under a hovel a strong wind could take. We're rich men living like the poorest men in the valley. That can't be the whole plan. Sitting on it forever, scared. He's right. He's put his thick, honest finger on the exact thing that's been growing in me all season. The thing I've been afraid to say out loud even to myself, because it's the biggest and most dangerous idea yet. No, I say, it's not the whole plan. Sitting on it isn't a plan, it's a cage. We can't stay poor forever, Darius. Sooner or later, a man who's secretly rich makes one mistake, and the whole point of being rich is you shouldn't have to. We can't get rich here, not out in the open, not in Brindle, not yet. The village that laughs at me would tear us apart the day it learned the truth. I turn the cup in my hands. So we don't get rich here, we get rich somewhere else. Somewhere far enough that Shota the Fool never has to be seen anywhere near it. Darius squints at me, meaning what? And here it is, the next brick. The one that turns us from two men hiding in a hole into something that can actually grow. There's land, I say, outside the village, toward the Delwick Road, past the Goat Common. Ground nobody wants because it's hard rock too near the surface for a plow. The same worthless gray rock that's the roof of our seam. Darius, do you understand? The very reason no one wants that land is the reason it's worth more than the whole valley put together. And it can be bought. Cheap, quiet. Not by me. Never by me. Mad Shota buying land would break the whole story in a day. But by a stranger. A buyer nobody's ever met. Acting for a master nobody can name. We buy it through someone else's hands, and no one in Brindle ever connects a scrap of dirt on the Delwick Road to the fool with the dry well. And then what? Darius says, leaning in, caught now. And then, I say, we've got ground that's ours, far from prying eyes, sitting on top of our own diamond seam where a man could someday build whatever he liked, and no one in this village would ever know who built it. A place to put the money, a place to grow, a place where I don't have to be poor Mad Shota, where I don't have to be anyone at all. I look at him. But we do it slow. We do it careful. We find a proxy nobody can trace, and we buy that land before anyone else ever wonders why gray rock might be worth having. Darius is quiet a long moment, turning it over in that slow, sure way of his. Then he grins and drains the jug and puts out his hand across the crooked table. Partners, he says. In dirt nobody wants. The best kind, I say, and clasp it. We start looking for our proxy the very next week. It takes some doing. It has to be someone with no tie to Brindle, no reason to gossip, and enough standing to buy land without raising questions. Darius's wife's brother out at Marsh Cross knows a man, a quiet, unremarkable clerk named Pell who handles small property matters for people who'd rather not be seen, and who's discreet because discretion is the whole of his trade and his living depends on it. We meet Pell in Marsh Cross. Well away from home. I don't tell him the truth. Pell believes I'm the agent of a modest coastal merchant looking to buy up cheap grazing land as a quiet investment, and I pay him well enough that he doesn't care to look past the story. He'll buy the fallow ground and the Goat Common and the strips around them, parcel by parcel, in the name of a merchant house that exists only on paper over a season, so slowly and unremarkably that not one soul in Brindle will notice worthless dirt changing hands. I hand Pell the first purse of silver, clean silver, earned stone by stone in 3 far towns, and he counts it, and nods, and asks no questions, and it's done. The first parcel is bought before we've even left the town. Riding home, Darius is quiet, and then he says, feels different, doesn't it? Lying instead of hiding, like we've, I don't know, started. And he's right. Something has shifted, and I feel it too. For a year I've been surviving, a lone fool in a hole, one dropped stone from death, hoarding what I dared not spend. Now there are 2 of us, and a wall of lies the whole village helps hold up, and a clean flow of silver through 3 towns, and, as of an hour ago, the first scrap of ground in the world that is truly, secretly ours. We're not hiding anymore. Not only hiding, we've started to build. You can't build a castle in secret. That's the first thing I learn when I try to build one. A hole in the ground you can hide. A pouch of stones you can hide. Walls, timber, laborers, carts of cut stone rolling up a road. A castle wants to be seen. It's the loudest thing a man can make, and the whole trick of the next season is building something enormous while making sure no one ever learns whose it is. The land is ours now. All of it. Pell's bought the fallow ground and the Goat Common and the strips around, parcel by quiet parcel, in the name of a coastal merchant house that lives only on paper. But land alone is just dirt nobody wanted, and dirt nobody wanted is exactly what I paid for it. Which is the point. Now I have to put a wall around our future, without letting a single thread of it run back to poor Mad Shota and his dry well. So I build the same way I sell, scattered, layered, forgettable. The laborers come first, and the laborers are the danger. Men who lay stone talk, and men who talk to Brindle are men who could ruin me, so I don't hire from Brindle. I don't hire from Delwick either, or any one town. I hire in pieces. Through Pell, through Darius's coast road contacts. Small crews from far apart who never learn where they are or who pays them. A gang of stone layers from the coast who think they're raising a manor for a merchant they'll never meet. Timbermen from Marsh Cross who deal only with a hired foreman and are gone before the roof's on. No crew stays long enough to grow curious. No crew large enough to be a rumor, and not one of them can point to a man's face and say he built the castle in the valley, because they never see me. Darius manages the foreman manages the crews. I stand 3 men back from every one of them, a ghost paying ghosts. The materials come the same way. Ordered through Pell's paper merchant house, delivered to the site by carters who think it's just another job, never routed through Brindle at all but up the Delwick Road from the far side. So the village never sees a cart of cut stone, and never has cause to wonder. Every link in the chain knows only its own link. Nowhere in the whole long chain is there a place where someone can stand and see the whole of it, and know that Shota the Fool is building himself a fortress. It costs a fortune, not a figure of speech fortune, a real one, the actual crock, emptying stone by stone into 3 towns to become the clean silver that becomes walls. And here I hit a rich man's problem I never dreamed of when I was poor. I have too much money to spend safely. You cannot pour a diamond seam's worth of coin through a proxy merchant house without someone, someday, asking where a modest coastal trader found so much silver. So I learned clumsily, then better to launder it, to slow it, to make Pell's paper merchant look like a real one with real cargoes and real modest profits, so the money that flows out of it looks earned instead of dug. It's tedious, dangerous, unglamorous work, and it's every bit as important as the mining, because a fortune that can't be explained is a fortune that gets a man hanged. Darius watches me hunched over Pell's ledgers one night, sounding out the numbers, and shakes his head. A year ago you couldn't count past your own fingers without cursing. Now look at you, merchant houses, ledgers. Year ago I had nothing to count, I say. Turns out a man learns fast when the lesson's worth something. But walls and ledgers aren't enough, and I know it. And it's the second great problem of the season that keeps me up at night. Because a diamond straight out of the seam, even a fine one, a fire-clear one, is a rough gray pebble. It's worth real money, yes. But I've learned, in Delwick stall to stall, the thing that changes everything. A raw stone and a cut stone are 2 different animals, and the gap between their prices is not double or triple. It's tenfold, 20, a cut and polished diamond faceted. So the fire I saw locked inside comes leaping out, set in gold. That's not a pebble anymore. That's a thing kings pay for. And the whole of that difference, that 10-fold and 20-fold, is made by one man with 1 wheel and 40 years of patience. I've been leaving 9/10 of my fortune in the ground by selling rough. And more than that, a rough diamond is a dangerous thing to sell, because there's no diamond mine in the whole kingdom, and a rough stone shouts mine to anyone careful, the way it shouted to Orsk. But a cut-set jewel, a cut jewel could have come from anywhere. A merchant house could plausibly buy and sell cut jewels. Cutting the stones doesn't just multiply their worth 20 times, it launders them. It turns a thing that screams, "Where did this come from?" into a thing that whispers nothing at all. I need a cutter. And not just any cutter, the best I can find, because a botched cut ruins a stone forever, and because I need a man who can keep a secret, at least as well as Darius, which is a very tall order in a much smaller pond. And I know exactly who I've known since Delwick. Since I first heard the word water and thought of a name my dead uncle used to say. Old Jonah. My uncle, the rich one, the one whose inheritance the merchants robbed my widowed aunt of, dealt in fine things in his day. And there was a name he'd say with the particular respect a wealthy man saves for a craftsman better than himself. Jonah the cutter. Best hands in the district, my uncle said. Could look at a rough stone and see the jewel sleeping in it and wake it up. And then, the way these stories go, Jonah fell. Bad luck. A bad patron. A debt. Eyes going in his old age. I didn't know the whole of it, only that the name had gone quiet. And that quiet, in a craftsman, usually means fallen on hard times. It takes Darius's coast road contacts 3 weeks to find him. He's in a poor quarter of a town 2 days off, living in a rented room over a tallow boiler's half blind in one eye, and going in the other, cutting glass paste for cheap trinkets to keep bread on the table, a master reduced to faking gems for peddlers, because no one trusts a half-blind old man with a real stone anymore. I go to him myself. This one I can't do through proxies. A man like Jonah, you win or lose face to face. He's proud. God, he's proud. Thin and bent and shabby, in a room that smells of rendered fat. And yet he looks at me over his ruined eyes like a lord received a beggar. I don't cut glass for strangers, he says, peddlers only. And you don't look like a peddler, and you don't look like a man who can pay, so I don't argue, I don't flatter. I take out a twist of rag, and I unroll it on his table under his one good window, and I lay a rough fire-clear diamond in the light. Jonah goes still the way Orsk went still, but it's a different stillness, not greed. Hunger. The hunger of an old craftsman who thought he'd never touch a real stone again, looking at the finest rough he may have ever seen. He picks it up. His hands don't shake. I notice, whatever his eyes do, his hands are steady as stone. He holds it to the window and turns it, and his ruined eyes narrow, and I watch something come alive in his bent old body that had gone out. Where, he says low, did you get this? That's not the question that matters, I say. The question that matters is, could you cut it? A stone like this, and more like it. Could those hands still do the thing my uncle used to say only your hands could do? He looks up sharp. Your uncle. I name him, and the old man's ruined face changes, recognition, and old respect, and something like grief. He's dead, Jonah says. It's not a question, I heard. And robbed at the end. Him and his vultures. He turns the diamond in the light again. Slow. His blood, are you? And you've a stone like this in a rag in your fist. His good eye fixes on me, sharp as a young man's. You're either the luckiest fool alive or the most dangerous, and I can't tell which. Both, I say. Master Jonah, I'll be plain, because plain's the only coin worth spending on a man like you. I have more of these, many more. I have a place far and quiet and safe, and I mean to build a house where stones like this are cut and set the way you cut and set them for men like my uncle. I don't want a peddler's glass cutter. I want the best hands in the district back at the wheel they were made for, cutting real stones for the price real stones fetch. I'm offering you your trade back, your name back, and more coin than the rest of your life would earn you rendering glass over a tallow boiler. Silence. The old man holds my diamond and doesn't give it back, and I let him hold it, because that stone is doing more arguing than my mouth ever could. There's no diamond mine in this kingdom, he says at last quietly. So I won't ask you where a man in my trade learns which questions cost him his neck. He sets the stone down, but gently, The way you set down something precious you've decided you'd like to keep near. But I'll ask this one and you'll answer it true, or I'll know and I'll send you off. Is there blood on these? Did you take them off a man? No, I say, and it's the easiest true word I've ever spoken. I dug them out of a hole in the ground behind my own house, with my own hands, after my wife left me, and the whole valley laughed. There's no blood on them, Master Jonah, only my own, off my knuckles, prying them out of the rock. He studies me a long moment. Something in it, maybe the plainness of it, maybe just an old man tired of glass, decides him. Show me the house you mean to build, Jonah says, and show me the stones, all of them. If they're what this one is. He taps my diamond. Then these hands have got one more great work left in them, and I'd sooner die with a real stone under the wheel than a peddler's paste. His good eye glints, and I'll want a wage that makes those vultures who ruined your uncle weep when they hear of it. Master Jonah, I say, and I mean it, you'll have it. So now there are 3 of us. And Jonah changes the whole enterprise the moment he sees the seam. I take him down the well myself, and the old man stands at the bottom with the lantern and looks at that wall of sleeping fire, and this proud fallen master weeps, openly, not for the wealth, but for the work of it, for all the jewels sleeping in that stone waiting for his wheel. A lifetime, he whispers. There's a lifetime of cutting in that wall. 10 lifetimes. He turns to me, tears on his ruined face. Boy, do you understand what you have. You've the making of the finest jeweler's house in the kingdom, and you're selling gray pebbles to awning thieves in Delwick for pennies. It's a crime. It's a sin against the stones. Then help me stop committing it, I say, and the difference is immediate and enormous. Jonah cuts a trial stone in a borrowed workshop, one of the fire-clear ones, and when he's done, days of work, patient, half-blind, his steady hands doing what his eyes no longer fully can, he hands me back a thing I don't have words for. The rough gray pebble is gone. In its place is a small burning point of fire that throws light around a dark room like a coal, and when I take it to a dealer far off, a cut stone now, safe, sourceless, laundered by the wheel, the price is not double, it's 20 times. Jonah has turned pennies into a fortune with nothing but patience and 40 years of skill, and every stone in that crock, every stone in that seam has just multiplied 20-fold in worth. Money now flows fast enough that laundering it becomes half my daily work. But it's clean, and it's cut, and it's untraceable, and the walls of our impossible house rise higher every week. The near miss comes late in the season, and it comes the way trouble always does. Not from the great danger I planned for, but from ordinary curiosity. A cart of finished ironwork is going up the Delwick road to the site. Hinges, brackets, the fittings for gates, and a brindle man, a farmhand named Two-Tooth Wick, who's got nothing better to do, and a nose for other people's business. Notices the cart, notices its fine ironwork, notices it's going up toward the old worthless goat common, where nothing's ever gone before, and does the one thing I've spent a whole season making sure no one does. He follows it. Darius brings me the word at a run, white-faced, Wick's on the road, trailing the cart, headed straight for our walls, and there they are, unmistakable cut stone, rising out of what used to be dirt, nobody wanted, a fortress with no name where there ought to be goats. One curious fool with a wagging tongue, an hour from seeing the whole thing and carrying it straight back to Vessa's shop. I don't have time to hide it. You can't hide a castle, so I do the only thing that's ever kept me alive. I don't fight the fact. I decide what it means. I ride out and catch Wick on the road before he reaches the walls, and I don't threaten him, and I don't buy him. Buying him confirms there's a secret, and threatening him makes one. Instead, I come at him as poor Mad Shota, delighted, breathless, mad-eyed, and I grab his arm and I point up the road at the walls with a lunatic's wonder. You see it? I gasp. You see it, Wick, the merchant's house. There's a rich man building up on the common, a coast merchant, they say. Grazing land he's turning to a manor, and I've been watching them work. Wick, I've been watching every day. And do you know what I've worked out? I lower my voice, mad and cunning. The treasure, the devil's gold I've been digging for. It's not in my well, it's under his ground. That's why he's building there. He knows he's after my gold, Wick. He's building right on top of it. And I'm going to watch him. I'm going to catch him at it. And I babble on, mad, obsessed, tugging his sleeve, until Wick, who came up this road curious and sharp, pulls his arm free with a laugh of pure disgust and pity, edging away from the lunatic. Get off, Shota, you daft old treasure, devil's gold. God's sake. And he turns around and heads back to Brindle, and I know exactly what he'll carry there. Not a fortress with no name, but a fresh, funny, cruel story about poor Mad Shota trailing a merchant's building works, raving that his imaginary gold's been stolen out from under him. The castle isn't a mystery anymore. I've given it an owner the village will believe in. A faraway coast merchant, dull and rich and no concern of theirs. And I've given Wick a better story than the truth. The same trick as always. And by nightfall, it's Vessa's tale to tell. And she tells it laughing. And nobody in Brindle ever wonders again why there are walls on the old goat common. The walls finish before the first frost. Darius and Jonah and I stand at the foot of them in the gray dusk, on land nobody wanted, under a fortress no one in the valley can explain. And I look up at cut stone rising 3 men high, where a year ago there was only rock too hard to plow. The very rock that made this ground worthless. The very rock that is the roof of everything we own. Castle? Darius says softly, tipping his head back to see the top of it. We built a castle, 2 men who dig, and a half-blind old cutter. And nobody knows it's ours. Not yet, I say, and I feel it again, stronger than at Marsh Cross. The shift, the ground moving under us. A year ago, I was a lone fool in a hole, one dropped stone from death, hoarding pennies I dared not spend. Now there are 3 of us, and a wall of lies the whole village holds up for free, and a cutter's wheel turning pennies into fortunes, and clean silver flowing through paper merchant houses. And walls, real walls, our walls, on our ground, standing against the sky. Not yet, I say again. But someday, Darius, I'm going to walk in the front gate of that castle in front of the whole valley of Brindle, and every one of them is going to know exactly whose it is. I look at the fortress no one can explain, standing over a diamond seam no one can imagine, and for the first time I let myself want the thing I've been afraid to want. But not until the walls are strong enough that knowing can't hurt me. Not one day before. Old Jonah beside me is still looking up at the walls with his ruined eyes. And he says, quiet, build it strong, boy, build it strong. Because the day the world learns what's under this ground, he taps his foot on the hard gray stone, is the day the wolves come. And they'll come better armed than a shopwoman's gossip. He's right. I know he's right. And somewhere out past the valley, in a district I've never seen, there is a man who owns everything for 100 miles and has never once heard the name Shota, and won't until the day my walls are too tall to hide behind and I have to step out from behind them into the light. But that day isn't today. Today, the walls are finished and the secret's held, and there are 3 of us, instead of 1, and the fire sleeps in the stone waiting for Jonah's wheel. Today, that's enough. I spent 30 years watching rivers do for free what I was too poor to buy, and now I can afford to make the river work for me instead. That's the whole idea I've carried since the 2nd month in the well, the one I couldn't build then because I had no walls, no coin, no way to explain a wash table on my land. Now I have walls. Now I have a fortress on ground nobody watches, with a river running past the edge of it, the same river I panned in vain for 30 years. The one that gave me nothing but wet knees and laughter. It's about to give me everything. Here's what 30 wasted years taught me that no rich man ever learns. Moving water sorts stone. A river takes a whole hillside of gravel and separates it. Sand from stone, light from heavy, with nothing but flow and time. The heavy things settle. The light things wash away. I've stood in that river 1,000 times cursing while it quietly did the very thing I was failing to do by hand. And a diamond is heavy. Heavier than the rock it hides in. Heavier than the gravel around it. Which means if I break the seam rock down small and run it through moving water on a slope, the water will do my sorting for me. Not 1 stone at a time by lantern light with a bleeding thumb, 100 at a time, 1,000. So we build the works. It's the finest thing I've ever made, and I make it the way a poor man makes things cheap, clever, out of what's to hand, and what I understand in my bones. I cut a diversion off the river, a channel that runs a controlled flow down through the works, and back to the river below, so I'm borrowing the water, not stealing it. And the river below runs the same as ever, and no one downstream ever wonders. That flow feeds the wash tables, long sloped troughs with crossbars, riffles, set at just the angle I learned by watching gravel banks for 3 decades. You feed crushed seam rock in at the top, the water carries it down, the light muck washes over the riffles and out, and the heavy stones the diamonds catch and settle in the traps behind each bar, exactly the way gold settles in a real river's bends. Exactly the way I watched it happen 10,000 times while the world laughed. The seam rock has to be broken small first, and by hand that's the slow part, so I build for that too. Simple crushing frames, a screening rig of graded mesh that sorts the crushed rock by size so the wash tables run clean and even. None of it's clever iron magic. It's all just things I understood from a life of failure, finally built at a scale that matters. Water and gravity and patience made into a machine. And the first time we run it, the first time I open the sluice and let the river come down through the works and pour crushed seam rock in at the top and watch the muck wash away, Darius and Jonah stand beside me, and none of us breathes. The water runs, the gravel tumbles, and behind the riffles, catching the light, the heavy stones settle out, a scatter of rough diamonds gathering in the traps, faster than 3 men could have pried loose in a week. Output doesn't double, it doesn't triple, it explodes. What took me a bleeding night by hand, the water does in an hour, and it does it while we sleep if we let it, and it never gets tired, and it never drops a stone on a road. The river I panned for 30 years is finally paying me back, all at once with interest. Darius watches the stones pile in the traps and just shakes his head over and over. 30 years you knelt in that water for nothing, he says quietly, and now it's doing this, just pouring it out. 30 years it was teaching me, I say, watching the fire settle out of the flow. I just didn't have anything worth teaching it for. But a works that pours out diamonds by the hour makes a new problem. And it's a good problem, which is the best kind. I can't do the sorting alone anymore. The traps fill faster than 3 men can pick through, and it's careful work, sorting the fire-clear gems from the cloudy grinding grade from the plain worthless gravel that slips through, the very work I taught myself stall in Delwick. It needs hands. Careful, honest hands and eyes I can trust. And here I hit the wall every secret rich man hits. I need workers. And workers are mouths, and mouths are leaks. I think about it a long time, and I decide the answer isn't to hire men from far away who'll wonder where they are. I've done that for the building, and building crews come and go, but sorting is daily, ongoing, inside the secret. These have to be people who live near, who stay, who I can watch and hold and, God willing, bind to me. Which means, terrifyingly, they have to be locals. Brindle folk. The very people I've spent 2 years hiding from. But here's the thing I've come to understand about Brindle. Vesa mocks me. The farmhands laugh. But there are folk in that village who never had a stone to throw, poor folk, honest folk, folk one bad harvest from ruin, who kept their heads down while the mocking went on because they had troubles enough of their own. Folk who owe Vesa nothing and would owe me everything if I gave them a way out of the mud. The first one I choose is a girl called Carol. I've watched her, the way I watch everything now. She's maybe 17, sharp-eyed, quick, honest to the point of it being a burden to her, the kind who'll tell you the true price of a thing when a lie would serve her better. She sweeps and fetches for Vesa at the shop for coppers and cruelty both, because her mother's ailing and her father's dead, and there's no other work for a girl with no dowry and too much backbone. Vesa treats her like dirt. Carol takes it because she has to and hates it, and it shows in the set of her jaw when Vesa's back is turned. A girl who hates Vesa, who's honest, who's sharp, who's desperate, and who owes me nothing yet but would owe me her whole family's bread. That's not a leak. That's the beginning of loyalty. I bring her on through the story. Of course, never as come work my secret diamond mine. I have Darius put it about that the coast merchant up on the common needs house servants and floor hands for his new manor, honest local folk, good wages, and Carol comes to be hired by a steward, who is Darius in a good coat. She thinks she works for a merchant she'll never meet. And I watch her the first weeks, the way you'd watch a new dog. And what I see is exactly what I hoped. She works twice as hard as she's asked. She never once palms a stone, though the chance is there daily, and when she doesn't understand a thing she asks, plain and unashamed, and remembers the answer forever. The day I decide about her is the day a fire-clear stone, a good one, gets caught in the folds of her apron unnoticed, and she finds it hours later cleaning up, and she could have kept it, and no one would ever have known. A stone worth more than 3 years of her wages. And instead, she comes straight to Darius, white-faced, holding it out. "This got caught in my apron, sir? I didn't take it, I swear it. It just..." And Darius takes it and thanks her, and that night tells me, and I know I've found something worth more than the stone she handed back. I promote her within the season. She goes from floor hand to sorter to running the sort, because it turns out the sharp-eyed girl who told true prices at Vesa's counter has the best eye for a stone of anyone but Jonah. She learns the grades faster than I did, faster than Darius ever will, and within months she's the one deciding gem from grinding grade, the one training the other hands I bring on, the one I trust to run the floor when I'm not there. A girl who swept a shop for a cruel woman's coppers now runs the sorting floor of the finest diamond works in the kingdom, and no one in Brindle has any idea, and she doesn't fully know it herself yet either. But she's rising, and she's rising with me. And that's a thing I understand now that I never did when I was poor. You don't only build yourself. You build the people who build with you, and they hold up your walls better than stone does. Jonah, meanwhile, has his workshop. I build it into the heart of the fortress. A proper cutting house, good light, a bench, a wheel, everything an old master's hands remember from before he fell. And Jonah, restored to his trade, comes alive in a way that's a joy to watch. The peddler's glass cutter, the half-blind old man over the tallow boiler, is gone. In his place is a craftsman doing the work he was made for, and the first true stones that come off his wheels stop my breath. He takes a rough fire-clear gem the size of a knuckle, and he studies it for days. That's the part I didn't understand. The seeing. How much of the art is in the seeing before the wheel ever touches stone? His eyes are half gone, but his seeing isn't in his eyes. It turns out, it's in 40 years of knowing where the fire wants to come out. And when he cuts it, patient, slow, sure, and hands it back to me set in a mount of gold he's shaped himself, I hold a thing that isn't a pebble and isn't even just a jewel. It's a small captured fire, a point of light that throws the whole room into sparks. A thing that would sit on a queen's hand and not be out of place. That, Jonah says, and his ruined old face is fierce with pride, is what you were selling to awning thieves for pennies? That. He takes it back, turns it in the light, and for a moment the old vulture-robbed grief crosses his face and then burns away. Boy, I could cut 10 of these a year, 20, and each one worth what your whole works pulls out of the ground in a month. The stones are the grounds, but this, he holds up the fire. This is mine. This is the part no river and no machine can do. This is why they'll come to you and not to the next man with a hole in his ground. He's right, and I file it away, because it's the most important thing anyone's told me since Delwick. The diamonds make me rich, but the cutting makes me safe, and someday the cutting is going to make me untouchable. A man with rough stones has a thing wolves will take. A man whose name means the finest cut jewels in the kingdom has a thing kings will protect, because kings want jewels and a dead jeweler cuts nothing. But that day's not here yet, and the works pouring out diamonds by the hour has made me something I've dreaded becoming. Visible. Too much coin, too many stones, too many hands who know too much. 2 years I survived because there was nothing worth stealing that anyone knew about. Now there's a fortune behind these walls, and fortunes draw wolves, and I have no teeth to meet them with. I need protection. Real protection. Not lies, not disguises. Walls have made lies half obsolete, and someday soon the reveal will make them useless entirely. I need men who fight. Rask comes to me the way the best things have through Darius's coast road web, a name passed along in a low voice. A former mercenary, fought in the border wars, took a bad wound, mustered out with nothing, Drifts now doing hard work for hard men because a soldier with a limp and no lord has no soft options. Silent, they say, grim, deadly, and, the word that matters most, reliable, in the specific way of a certain kind of hard man. Pay him fair, treat him true, and he'll die on your wall before he'll take a copper from your enemy. Betray him, cheat him, treat him like a thing, and you'll deserve what comes. I meet him myself, because a man like this you win or lose face to face. Same as Jonah. He's exactly as described. Big, still, a soldier's stillness, a face that gives nothing, a limp he doesn't hide and doesn't apologize for. He looks at the walls, at the works, at the diversion channel and the wash tables and the coming and going of it. And I watch him reading it the way I read a dealer's eyes. Measuring, weighing, and I see him arrive at a soldier's conclusion before I've said 10 words. You've a fortune here, he says flatly. Anyone with an eye can see it. Stone works like this, coin like this. You've something worth taking, and you've got what? To guard it? A farmer and an old man and a girl. You're a lamb that's grown fat, and you've no idea how many wolves have already smelled it. His hard eyes come to me. Why hire a broken soldier? Half the sellswords in the district would take this post, because half the sellswords in the district would look at what's behind these walls and take it for themselves, I say. I don't need the strongest sword, Rask. I need the one that stays bought. They tell me you're a man who paid fair, doesn't sell twice. I meet his stare. I'll pay you better than any lord ever did, and I'll pay you honest on time to my last day, and I'll never once treat you like a thing to be used and thrown out, because I've been used and thrown out my whole life, and I know exactly what it makes a man. And in return, I want you to build me a wall of men as loyal as you are, and vet every soul who comes near this place, and make it so no wolf that comes ever leaves. Name your wage, then double it. That's my offer. Silence. The soldier weighs me the way he weighed the walls. And something, the plainness of it maybe, or the way I said I've been used and thrown out and meant it, something lands. You know why I never rose? Rask says at last. Not the limp. Every lord I served cheated the pay, spent men like coin, and threw the broken ones in a ditch. I stopped fighting for men like that. He looks at me a long moment more. You cheat the pay once, one time, and I'm gone, and I'll take whatever men I trained with me. Understand that going in. I understand it, I say. I'll never give you cause. He nods, slow, and puts out a scarred hand, and I take it. Then I'll build you a wall of men, Rask says, and God help the fool that comes over it. So by the turn of the season there are 5 of us at the heart of it. Me and Darius and Jonah and Carol and now Rask, and around us a growing works that's become a marvel. Water and iron pouring diamonds out of the ground by the hour, a cutting house turning them to fire, a sorting floor of trusted hands, and the beginnings of a real guard, vetted and drilled by a soldier who doesn't smile. The coin doesn't pile anymore, it floods. Laundering it through Pell's paper merchant house has become a daily labor as large as the mining. There is only so much a modest coast trader can plausibly earn, and I'm long past that ceiling and climbing, which is its own kind of danger. One I don't have an answer to yet. Rask finds me one gray evening at the wash tables, watching the water do its endless work, the fire settling in the traps. It's running well, he says. Coming from Rask, that's a speech. It is, I say. That's the trouble. He nods at the works, the walls, the whole of it glittering in the dusk. You've built something that can't stay hidden, a hole in the ground you can hide, a castle full of men and machines pouring out diamonds by the hour. He shakes his head. Word travels. It always travels. Not this month, maybe, not next. There's coin flowing off this place into 3 towns, and cut jewels going to dealers, and men who've worked here and moved on, and everyone's a thread. And one day some careful man pulls the threads together and knows exactly what sits on this ground and who owns it. He looks at me steadily. You need to decide, and soon, whether the world learns your secret on your terms or on someone else's, because it's going to learn it. Wealth this size can't hide. It never could. And I stand there in the dusk, watching the river I panned for 30 years pour out a fortune by the hour, watching the fire settle in the traps. And I know he's right. The walls are nearly strong enough. The guard is forming. The cutting house is making me the kind of valuable that kings protect. I've spent 2 years being poor Mad Shota, so no one would look at me. And now I've built something so large it can't help but be looked at. The disguise has done its work. Soon, sooner than I once dreamed, it's going to be time to stop hiding. Not yet, I tell Rask. But you're right. Keep building the wall, because the day I stop being Mad Shota with the dry well, and start being the man who owns all this. I look up at the fortress no one can explain, standing over a seam no one can imagine. That's the day the real wolves come, and when they do, I mean to be ready for them. For 2 years I built the most convincing disguise in the valley, and today I'm going to burn it to the ground on purpose. Rask was right. He's been right for a month, and every day I've turned it over and come to the same place. Wealth this size can't hide, and a secret the world is going to learn anyway is a secret you'd better reveal on your own terms, at your own hour, in your own way, or someone else picks the hour, and it's the worst possible one. I've watched too many threads start to pull. A dealer 2 towns off asking one too many questions about where the fine-cut stones keep coming from. A worker who moved on, talking. Bessa's suspicion, quieted but never dead, stirring again every time Darius rides out. The walls on the common that everyone believes belong to a faceless coast merchant, a belief one curious man could unravel in an afternoon, now that the works run loud and the guard drills in the open. So I'm not going to wait for the unraveling. I'm going to choose the moment and the manner, and I'm going to make it a thunderclap that leaves no room for anyone else's version of the story. I take 3 days deciding how, because the how matters as much as the when. I could do it quiet, let it leak, Let word spread that mad Shota's come into money somehow. Let the village whisper and wonder and slowly arrive at the truth in the ugliest possible way, with rumor and envy and Vesa shaping every telling. That's the coward's reveal. And it's the dangerous one, because it lets everyone else write the tale. Or I can do what I've dreamed of doing since the night I stood at the foot of the finished walls and let myself want it. I can walk in the front gate of that castle in front of the whole valley of Brindle, in the light where every soul can see, and let the truth land all at once, complete, undeniable, mine. I choose the thunderclap. I plan it like a campaign, because it is one. Rask handles the security, the walls manned, the guard visible, every approach watched, because the moment the secret's out is the most dangerous moment of my whole life. The instant the wolves first smell blood, Jonah prepares the cutting house to be seen. I want the works running, the wheel turning, the fire coming off the stone, so that no one who sees it can ever doubt what it is. Carol drills the sorting floor to run clean under eyes. Arius, who's laughed with me over the great joke for 2 years, is the only one who understands what this day means to me under all the strategy. And the morning of it, he grips my shoulder and says, "You daft, stubborn fool. 2 years you dug in that hole while they laughed. Go show them," and I nearly can't speak. I dress for it. Not in a lord's finery. I don't have the right yet, and I won't pretend to it, but clean. Good cloth, well made. The clothes of a man of means, which is exactly what I am and have been for 2 years while wearing rags to sell a lie. I look at myself in the first real glass I've owned since Mira took ours. And the man looking back isn't poor Mad Shota. He's tired and older and harder around the eyes than the fool who wept into a well 2 years ago. But he's not broken. He hasn't been broken in a long time. I just kept letting them believe it. And then I do the thing I've dreamed of, and I do it on a market day. Because I want the whole village there. I ride into Brindle. Not shuffle up the lane in mud. Ride a good horse, one of Rask's well-kept, and behind me 2 of Rask's guardsmen, armed and grim and unmistakable, because I want it clear from the first heartbeat that this is not a man to be laughed at or robbed. And I ride down the main lane past the fields, past the crooked shack that was mine, into the market square where 2 years ago Mira told the whole village she'd married me for money, and Vesa crowed and the laughter rolled over me like water. The square goes quiet the way it went quiet that day, but it's a different quiet. That day, it was the hush before the crowd is fed. This is the hush of 100 people who cannot make the thing in front of them make sense, because they know that horse isn't Shota's. They know those armed men aren't Shota's. They're waiting for the joke for the mad thing, for poor Shota to fall off the horse or start raving about devil's gold, and I don't. I stop the horse in the middle of the square, in the exact spot where I stood in the mud, and let them laugh. And I sit up there in good cloth on a good horse with armed men at my back, and I let the silence stretch until it hurts. Vesa breaks first. Of course she does. She's out front of her shop and her mouth's been working since I came into view, trying to find the mockery, and it comes out uncertain for the first time in 2 years. "Shota, what in? Where'd you get that horse? Did you? What's this then? Some new madness?" Her voice wavers, because even Vesa can see the guardsman, can see the cloth, can see that whatever this is, it isn't madness. "No madness, Vesa," I say, and my voice carries easy over the square, and it's steady, and it's a voice they've never once heard out of me, the voice I've kept locked away under 2 years of performed grief. No madness at all. There never was. That's the part I need you all to understand. I look around the square, slow taking them in. The farmhands who called down my well, the neighbors who laughed at Vesa's jokes, the whole valley that mocked me. I know you've laughed at me for 2 years, digging a dry well, chasing treasure that wasn't there, talking to a hole in the ground. Poor Mad Shota. I let it sit. You should know, every one of you, that I let you believe it. I built that belief on purpose, brick by brick, because it was the only wall a poor man had, and you helped me build it. You never once suspected the truth, because the truth was better hidden behind your laughter than behind any stone. The square is dead silent now. 100 people not breathing. The well wasn't dry, I say. The treasure was real. It was under my feet the whole time. The whole 30 years I searched. 5 meters down in the ground, my wife left me for not digging. I look for one moment at where Mira used to stand. Though she's not here, she's in Harrow, and I come back to the crowd. There's a diamond seam under that field, a great one. And that castle on the common that you all believe belongs to a coast merchant you've never met, there is no coast merchant. I let it land. It's mine. I built it, stone by stone, in secret. With the fortune I've been pulling out of the well, you laughed at me for digging. I am the richest man in this district, and I have been for 2 years, standing right here in the mud while you laughed. I don't shout it. That's the thing I've learned. Over 2 years that the loudest blow is the quiet one. I say it plain, and I let the plainness be the weight, and I watch it break over the square face by face. Nobody laughs. Not one soul. The laughter that rolled over me 2 years ago is gone, and in its place is a silence I can feel in my chest. The silence of 100 people rearranging their whole understanding of a man they thought they'd measured to the bottom. Some of them go white. Some of them can't meet my eye. And some of them, I watch it happen, start to remember every cruel thing they ever said to poor Mad Shota, and start to be afraid. Vesa can't hold it in. It's not in her to hold anything in. "You're lying," she says. But it comes out thin, desperate. A woman watching her hole standing in the village dissolve. "You can't. There's no diamond mine. Everyone knows there's no—" "Come and see it then," I say. And I say it gently, which is crueler than any anger I could show her. All of you, the gates are open today. Come up to the common and see the works running, and the stones in the traps, and the wheel cutting fire out of the rock. I've nothing to hide anymore, Vesa. I hid for 2 years so men like you couldn't rob me before I had walls to stop you. Now I have the walls. Now you can look all you like, and I see it land on her, the full exact measure of it. 2 years she made me the village joke. 2 years she poisoned my wife against me, whispered across her counter, orchestrated my humiliation, told the coast road I chased devil's gold, laughed loudest and longest. And every single day of it she was mocking the richest man in the district, building his disguise for free, and now the whole village is watching her realize it. Her power in Brindle was her tongue, her certainty, her position at the center of every story, and I've just made her the fool of the biggest story the valley will ever tell. The woman who laughed at a fortune for 2 years and never once suspected. She has no words. For the first time since I've known her, Vesa has no words, and she stands in the door of her shop with her mouth working and nothing coming out. And the neighbors who laughed with her yesterday edge away from her today, and I watch her understand that the laughter has changed hands. I don't gloat. That's the thing, I've earned the right to gloat. 2 years worth, and I find I don't want it. Gloating is a small man's revenge, and I'm done being small. Success is the revenge. Me on the horse in good cloth in the square where I wept is the revenge complete, needing no cruelty added. I just let it be true, and let it stand, and that's worse for Vesa than anything I could say. I could ride away then. The thunderclaps landed. But there's a piece of this I've planned as carefully as the reveal, and it's the piece that turns a spectacle into a foundation. Because here's the thing. I understood the night I hired Carol. A rich man surrounded by people who hate him is a rich man waiting to be robbed. Envy is a wolf too, the quiet kind, the kind that opens a gate for the loud wolves later. And the whole village that laughed at me is now the whole village that resents me, unless I give them a reason not to. So I don't just reveal my wealth, I offer them a place in it. I'll say one more thing, I call to the square, and then I'll leave you to it. The works up on the common are growing. I need hands, honest hands, floor hands, laborers, carters, folk to guard and folk to build. I pay better than any wage in this district, and I pay it fair and on time. Ask Carol. Ask any soul who works for me already. A stir at that, they hadn't known Carol works for me, and now they do, and they're recalculating that too. I don't much care who laughed at me. I remember it. Mind. I'm not a man who starves his neighbors to spite them. The gates are open. There's work for anyone honest enough to want it, and honest enough to keep it. Come up and be paid, or stay down here and resent me. Your choice. But I'd rather have the whole valley eating off my table than sharpening knives about it. It's not mercy. Or it's not only mercy. It's strategy. The best strategy I've got. Every man I hire is a man who owes me his bread instead of envying my walls. Every family that eats off my works is a family that has a stake in my walls standing. I'm not just revealing my fortune. I'm buying the loyalty of the very village that mocked me, with the very fortune they mocked me for, and turning 100 resentful poor into 100 people who'd sooner protect me than let a wolf through the gate. Development through others. I learned it with Carol, and now I'm doing it with a whole valley. And it works. The way it worked with Carol, because desperate honest folk want a way out of the mud more than they want to hold a grudge. Before I've even ridden out of the square, there are men shouldering toward the road up to the common, and by the week's end there's a line at my gate of Brindle folk wanting work. Folk who laughed at me a season ago, and now want to be paid by me, and I take the honest ones and set Rask to vetting them and Carol to training them. And the works grows, and the valley that mocked me becomes family by family. The valley that depends on me. I don't wait long to make it all real in the eyes of the world beyond Brindle either, because a fortune that only exists as a village's shock is a fortune with no protection. That very season, I do the thing that ends the black market forever. I go straight, in the open, at the top. I register the claim, properly, legally, through the district authorities, in my own name, the diamond works, the mining rights, the land, all of it recorded and stamped and lawful so that the seam under the field is mine, not just because I found it, but because the law says so. It costs me fees and gifts to the right clerks, and a great deal of coin greasing, a great deal of official palms, but it buys me the one thing walls can't, a legal foundation. A wolf can climb a wall. It's much harder for a wolf to climb the law, and I stop selling on the black market entirely. No more awning thieves. No more spreading small dull sales across 3 towns. No more low forgettable prices to look poor. Those days are done. Now Jonah's cut jewels, fire captured in gold, the finest work in the district, go out openly, in my name, to real dealers and real merchants at real prices, premium prices, the prices a masterwork commands, cut and set, and lawful and sourced from a registered claim. They're not a rough stone shouting mine anymore. They're jewels, and jewels are respectable. And respectable is safe in a way secrecy never was. The old well in my ruined yard, the hole they laughed at, is under armed guard now, Rask's men, day and night, and it feeds in above-ground works. No more lantern mining in the dark. The shack still stands beside it, crooked and empty. I keep it. I don't know why at first, and then I do. It's a monument, that shack, to the man I was and the men who mocked him, and I want to be able to look at it. I ride back up to the fortress that evening, my fortress. Openly mine now, the whole valley knowing it, and Darius meets me at the gate, grinning fit to split his face, because he was in the square in the crowd, and he watched the whole thing land. Their faces, he says, laughing. God, Shota, their faces. Vesa with her mouth open like a landed fish. 2 years, and you did it in 10 minutes without raising your voice. He shakes his head, wondering. You didn't even gloat. I'd have gloated. I wanted to gloat for you. Gloating's for men who aren't sure they won, I say. I'm sure. And I look up at the walls, gold in the evening light, the works running behind them, the guard on the wall, the fire coming off Jonah's wheel somewhere within. All of it mine, all of it open, all of it real at last. 2 years I hid behind a fool's face. Today I stepped out from behind it, and the walls held, and the wolves didn't come. And the valley that laughed is already lining up at my gate to be paid. It's the best day of my life. I let myself have it, all of it, standing at the gate of the castle I built from a dry well. And then, 3 days later, Rask comes to me with a folded paper and a face even grimmer than usual, and I know before he speaks that the good day is over. A rider came, Rask says from the district seat. He hands me the paper. Words traveled, Shota, faster than even I thought. It's reached the one man in this district it was always going to reach. I break the seal. It's a summons, courteous, formal, unmistakable, and at the bottom is a name and a seal I've never seen but have dreaded since the night Jonah said the wolves will come better armed than a shopwoman's gossip. Baron Haldren, the man who owns everything for 100 miles, who never once heard the name Shota, and just did. He knows a commoner sits on a diamond seam, Rask says quietly. He's the kind of wolf your walls were built for. I've spent 2 years outwitting a shopwoman and a village of farmhands. Now I ride to meet a man who could take everything I own with a wax seal and a smile, and I have to be cleverer than I've ever been in my life. Because Baron Haldren doesn't need to rob me in the dark. He can rob me in daylight with the law in his hand. The summons is courteous. That's the first thing I learn about Haldren before I ever see his face. The courtesy is the threat. A man who could simply take doesn't need to be polite. Polite means he wants something and hasn't decided yet whether to ask or seize. Rask reads it the same way. He's feeling you out, he says. The summons is a hand extended so he can measure your grip. Go, but go ready to be tested. So I ready myself, and I don't ride in as a supplicant. I ride to the district seat in good cloth with Rask at my side and a proper escort. A man of standing come to call on a peer, not a peasant answering his master. Everything is a message. At this level I'm learning fast, and the message I send with my arrival is, I am not afraid of you, whether I am or not. Haldren receives me in a hall that's meant to make me feel small. It's built for it. High, cold, hung with the trophies of a family that's ruled this district for generations. A room that says your walls are new and mine are old. And Haldren himself sits at the far end of it, and he's not what I expected. I'd braced for a brute. He's not a brute. He's worse. He's clever and patient and cold. A lean man with a still face and eyes that measure the way Rask's measure, the way mine do. A predator who's never had to hurry, because everything he's ever wanted has come to him by law or by fear. So, he says, when I've been walked the long humbling length of the hall, the commoner with the diamond mine, I confess, when the tale first reached me, I didn't believe it. A dry well. A village fool. And then my clerks confirmed the claim. Registered, lawful, in your own name. Clever of you that. Registering it. A thin smile. Most peasants who stumble onto a fortune don't think to make it legal. They just get robbed. I've been robbed before, I say. My uncle's estate, taken off my widowed aunt by merchants in broad daylight because she had no standing and no law on her side. I learned the lesson. I don't intend to be robbed again. Something flickers in Haldren's eyes at that. I've told him I know exactly what game he's playing, and I've told him I've come armed against it. He recalculates. Good, let him. What follows is a duel, and it's fought with words and law instead of swords. And it goes on the better part of an afternoon, and it's the hardest fight of my life to that point because Haldren is good and I'm making half of it up as I go. He opens gently, the courtesy first. You must find yourself in a difficult position, he says, all concerned. A man of sudden wealth, no title, no protection but hired swords and new walls. This district is dangerous for the undefended rich. There are elements I keep in check as its lord bandits, rival claims. It would be a tragedy if your enterprise came to harm for lack of a proper patron. He lets it sit. I could be that patron, a partnership, my protection, my standing, my authority behind your works, and in exchange a fair share of the yield. You'd sleep safe, and I'd see my district prosper. Everyone gains. It's seizure wearing the face of a gift, and both of us know it. A partnership. With Haldren means Haldren's men in my works. Haldren's share growing every year. Haldren's protection becoming Haldren's ownership by inches. Until one day I wake up a manager of my own mine, and then not even that. I've seen exactly this. It's what the merchants did to my aunt, only slower and with better manners. That's generous, I say, and I match his courtesy, because to refuse rudely is to give him cause. But I find I sleep quite well behind my own walls, my lord. I've a good captain and good men, and I've registered the claim precisely so I wouldn't need a patron. The law is my patron. I'd not want to burden you with a share of a burden I'm already carrying well enough alone. His smile stays, his eyes cool. First offer refused. He moves to the second front, the legal one. This is the dangerous one, and he shifts to it smoothly. The law, he muses. Yes, you've registered the surface claim, I'll grant. But mineral rights are a subtle matter, and the district's charters are old and layered. There's a question, you see, of whether the ancient grazing common carries with it the subsurface rights, or whether those revert, under the old district charters to the crown's local authority. Which is to say to me, he spreads his hands regretful. It may be that your surface claim is perfectly sound and your mineral claim rests on ground the charter never gave you the right to hold. These things must be tested in the proper courts. My courts, as it happens. And such tests can take years, during which the works would, of course, have to be held in abeyance. Stopped. Idle. The threat naked now under the courtesy. Unless, of course, we could reach some private arrangement that spared us all the tedium of law. And here's where 2 years of paying for my schooling saves me. Because I knew this was coming. Not this exact argument, but this move, the legal loophole, the ancient charter, the reversion to the local lord. Jonah warned me the wolves would come better armed than gossip, and I listened. From the day I decided to reveal I've had Pell, quiet, discreet Pell, who handles matters for men who'd rather not be seen, digging through district charters and crown law. And more than that, I've reached past Haldren. I've done the one thing a man like Haldren never expects a peasant to do. I've gone over his head. My lord, I say, and I keep my voice mild. I confess I anticipated this question. The old charters are indeed layered, as you say, so layered that I thought it wisest not to rely on the district's reading of them, but to seek the crown's. I let that land. I've secured a royal charter, a crown grant of the mineral rights to my registered claim, sealed and lawful, above and beyond any district authority. The subsurface is mine not by the grace of the local charter, which you're right to say is murky, but by direct grant of the crown itself, which supersedes it. I have the document. I'd be glad to have my clerk send you a copy, so your courts needn't trouble themselves testing a matter the crown has already settled. The hall goes very quiet. I watch Haldren's still face, and for the first time it isn't quite still, because a peasant with a diamond mine he can handle, a peasant with a lawyer he can outlast, but a peasant with a royal charter, a peasant who is clever enough and connected enough, and above all, fast enough to reach the crown before Haldren could reach the courts. That is not a thing that fits Haldren's understanding of the world, and I watch him fail for one long moment to make it fit. His courts can't touch a crown grant. His charter argument is dead, the instant it meets a royal seal. I've cut the legal ground out from under him before he ever finished laying it. It's not that I'm cleverer than Haldren. I want to be honest about that. It's that I saw him coming from a long way off, and I've spent 2 years learning the exact lesson he counted on me, not knowing that the law is a weapon, and the man who reaches the higher law first wins, and that a lord's power is only absolute until it meets a power above him. Haldren's used to being the top of the world. I've made sure before I ever walked into his hall that there was a bigger world above us both, and that I'd gotten to it first. Haldren recovers well. I'll give him that. The still face returns, and the courtesy, and he even smiles. A real one now, a colder and more interested one. The smile of a predator who's discovered his prey has teeth and is recalculating the hunt. A royal charter, he says softly. Well, you've been busy, and better advised than a village fool has any right to be. He rises and comes down the hall toward me, unhurried, and stops close and drops the pretense of concern entirely. And now I see the real Haldren. And the real Haldren is worse than any of it. You've won this round, Diamond Man, cleanly. I'll not pretend otherwise. I respect a clever move even when it's played against me. His voice drops, quiet, almost friendly. But understand something. This district is mine, has been mine, and my father's, and his father's. A charter from a crown 100 miles away is a fine piece of paper, and it will protect you in a courtroom. But courtrooms are 100 miles away, and I am here. Paper is not a wall. Paper does not stop a fire or a flood or a band of masterless men who happen upon an undefended works some dark night. Accidents happen to the rich Diamond Man, especially the newly rich who don't yet know how the world truly works. He smiles. Go home, enjoy your charter, and think in the nights about how very far you are from your crown and how very close you are to me. It's a threat, and it's the realest thing he said all afternoon, and it's meant to make me afraid. It does. I'd be a fool if it didn't, but I don't let him see it, and I answer it as levelly as I can. I'll think about it, my lord. And you might think in your nights about how a crown that granted a charter would take it, if a man who held that charter came to grief by fire or flood or masterless men, in a district it had entrusted to your keeping. The crown doesn't like its grants disturbed. It makes the crown look weak, and a lord who lets a royal charter holder come to harm on his own ground. I let it hang, the way he let his threats hang. Well, accidents happen to lords too, my lord. Especially the ones who make the crown look weak. His eyes narrow, and in that narrowing I read the thing I came to learn. That words and law have taken us as far as they can, that I've blocked every legal path he has, and that a man like Haldren, blocked by law, does not give up. He simply changes the tool. The courtesy is over. The lawyering is over. What's left in a man like this is force. Safe travels home, Haldren says, courteous once more, and it's the most threatening thing he's said all day. I ride back to the fortress, and I don't sleep that night, and neither does Rask. He'll come with men, Rask says flatly, when I've told him the whole of it. You've beaten him at law and he can't stomach it. A man like that humiliated by a peasant, with a fortune in stones sitting a day's ride from his hall, and no legal way to take it. He shakes his head. He'll take it the old way, not tomorrow, not next week. He'll gather quietly, find his moment, and one dark night, he'll send men to seize the works by force and settle the law after, over your body, with a story about bandits. Possession first, papers second. It's what I'd do in his place. It's what men like him have always done. He looks at me. The charter bought you the law, Shota. It didn't buy you safety. Now we buy safety ourselves, in iron, so we prepare for war, and I throw everything I have into it, because everything I have is what's at stake. I fortify. The walls were built to keep out gossip and thieves. Now Rask rebuilds them to stop soldiers. He maps the whole estate for defense. Every approach, every choke point, every place a man could come over a wall or through a gate. He drills the guard hard, day after day, turning hired swords into a unit that fights together. He stockpiles food, water, arrows, everything a place needs to hold if it's cut off, because a siege, however brief, is a thing we might face. And crucially, he does the thing that saved me from Vesa turned into iron. He vets every worker, every new hire, every soul that comes near the works. Rask examines for the thread that leads back to Haldren, because a wolf like that doesn't only come over the wall. He comes through the gate, in the person of a bought man first. And I do the other half of the defense, the half that's mine. I make myself too valuable and too connected to destroy cheaply, because Haldren's whole strategy rests on being able to kill a nobody in the dark and call it bandits. So I stop being a nobody, fast and hard, and in public, I expand the jewelry court. I have Jonah cut his finest work yet, and I send sample pieces, gifts, really tribute, to wealthy nobles across the district and beyond, to the kind of people Haldren must answer to, along with word of who made them and where. I build a reputation, deliberately, loudly, the Diamond Lord of the Valley, whose stones are the finest in the district, whose name is beginning to be spoken in halls far grander than Haldren's. Every noble who wears my jewels is a noble who'd notice if I vanished. Every connection I make is armor, because the more people of standing who know my name and value my works, the more expensive it becomes for Haldren to make me disappear. The harder it is to sell bandits when a dozen lords are asking where their jeweler's gone. It's the same lesson Jonah taught me at the wheel. The diamonds make me rich, but the cutting makes me safe, and connection makes me untouchable. A dead miner is easy. A dead jeweler that a dozen nobles were waiting on is a scandal that reaches the crown. I'm weaving myself into the fabric of the world above Haldren so tightly that cutting me out tears the fabric, and a lord who tears the fabric answers for it. The weeks that follow are tense in a way the whole valley can feel. The works run, but under guard, always under guard. Rask's men drill in the open, and the drilling is itself a message. Come and it will cost you. Carol keeps the sorting floor running, though the tension shows in everyone. Jonah cuts his masterpieces, hunched over the wheel, unbothered, because at his age a threat from a baron rates below a poorly cut stone in his list of fears. Darius manages the sales and comes back from every town with rumors, and the rumors all run the same way. That Haldren's angry, that Haldren's asking questions, that Haldren's been seen speaking with hard men, and then it stops being rumor. Rask brings the man to me himself at dawn with 2 guardsmen holding him and the man's face already showing where Rask's questions have landed. Found him inside the works. Rask says Grim hired on as a carter. 3 weeks back, vetting flagged him. I've been watching him since. Last night he was pacing off the guard positions and the wall approaches, and this morning I took him with these on him. He drops 2 things on my table, a purse of coin, more than a carter earns in a year, and a scrap of paper with a crude map of my own estate on it. My walls, my gates, my guard posts, the approaches to the works. A spy, Haldren's spy, mapping my defenses from the inside, exactly as Rask warned the wolf coming through the gate before he comes over the wall. I look at the map of my own home drawn by an enemy's hand, and I look at the coin that bought it, and I feel the cold clarity settle over me. The same clarity as the first night in the well, the same clarity as Haldren's cold hall. He's not scouting for nothing, I say quietly. He's mapping us because someone means to use the map. Rask, how long? A map like this detailed? Rask studies it, and his hard face is certain. He's not planning. He's finishing planning. You don't map guard positions weeks out. You map them because you're coming soon, and you want to know where the walls are thin. He looks up at me. The Baron's gathering men, Shota. This is the last piece before he moves. Weeks. Maybe less. I look at the map of everything I built from a dry well, drawn out for an enemy who means to take it by force in the dark, and call it bandits. And I don't feel afraid. That surprises me. Standing there 2 years ago, a shopwoman's suspicion could have gotten me killed, and I lived in terror of it. Now, a Baron's army is coming and I feel cold. Ready, because I have something I didn't have then. I have walls and men and a captain who's been to war, and a fortune and a valley that eats off my table, and the whole of a works built from water and stone that Haldren thinks is only a place to rob. He thinks he's coming to seize an undefended prize. He has no idea he's coming to a place I've had 2 years to prepare, run by a man who wins by getting there first. Then we don't wait for him to come on his terms, I say, and I hear the change in my own voice, and Rask hears it too, and something in his hard face shifts toward approval. He wants to use this map good. Let's make sure that everything on it, every wall, every gate, every approach he thinks he knows is exactly what we want him to walk into. Look at Rask. You told me once you'd build me a wall of men and God help the fool who came over it. The fool's coming. Let's build him something better than a wall. Rask smiles, then the first time I've ever seen it, a hard, grim soldier smile. Now you're talking like a man who means to win, he says. Tell me what the water and the stone can do. Because if the Baron thinks he's raiding a mine, he taps the crude little map. We're going to teach him he's marched his men into the one place in this district that was built from the ground up. to swallow them whole. A man can hire 100 swords to kill me. He cannot hire the crown to want me dead, and that's the wall I build now, in the weeks before the wolves come. Not of stone, but of the one thing a baron can't burn down. Haldron means to seize the works by force and settle the law over my body with a tale of bandits. Rask is preparing the iron answer. The walls, the traps, the men. But I've learned enough at this level to know that winning the raid isn't the same as winning the war. Even if we break his men at the wall, Haldron survives it. He's a lord. He'll deny everything, blame masterless men, gather again and grind me down over years because he has time and standing and I have neither. Beating his soldiers only matters if I can beat him afterward. In the world above us both, and to do that, I need to have made myself, before the raid ever comes, into something the crown values enough to avenge. So I turn the cutting house into a court. Not a court of law, a court of prestige, the kind that gathers around a master craftsman whose work the great must have. This is Jonah's hour, and I give the old man everything. The finest rough from the whole seam, the best gold, apprentices to spare his failing eyes the small work, and free rein to make not jewels but masterpieces, the greatest things his 40 years have in them. And Jonah, who a season ago was cutting glass paste over a tallow boiler, rises to it like a man given back his soul. What comes off his wheel stops the breath of everyone who sees it. He cuts a great fire-clear stone into a jewel that throws light like a captive star, and sets it in a piece of gold work so fine that even I, who know nothing of the art, can see it's a thing that belongs on the hand of someone who rules. This, Jonah says, holding it up, fierce with the pride of a man restored, this is the work I was born for and thought I'd die without doing. Let the vultures who ruined your uncle hear that old Jonah's cutting the finest stones in the kingdom for a peasant they laughed at. Let them choke on it. And there are tears in his ruined eyes, and I understand that I've given the old man more than a wage. I've given him back the whole meaning of his life, and that redemption is worth as much to him as the fortune is to me. Development through others, again, his rise and mine are the same rise now. I send these masterpieces up the ladder of the world deliberately, as gifts and as bait. Not to Haldron's peers, past them, above them, to the great houses of the district and beyond. And I make sure each gift carries the maker's name and the source, cut by Master Jonah, from the works of the Diamond Lord of the Valley. Reputation is armor, and I'm forging armor as fast as Jonah can cut, and it reaches the top faster than I dared hope. A royal commission arrives. I hold the sealed letter in my hands and I have to sit down. The crown itself has heard of the jewels off Jonah's wheel, and wants them, a commission for a great piece, a jewel for the royal house, to be worn at court. The very center of the world I once glimpsed as a mud-poor prospector staring at a wool merchant's wife's pea-sized stone, the world above Delwick that I never dreamed I'd touch, has reached down and asked for my work by name. I understand exactly what it means, and it isn't only pride, though God knows there's pride in it. It's the last stone in the wall I've been building against Haldron. Because when Jonah's jewel is worn at court, when the royal house itself wears the work of the Diamond Lord of the Valley, when my name is spoken in the highest hall in the kingdom, then I am no longer a nobody a baron can murder in the dark and call bandits. I am a crown-favored jeweler whose works serve the royal house, and a lord who lets a crown-favored jeweler come to harm on his own ground has not committed a private crime. He's committed an offense against the crown itself, an embarrassment the crown cannot ignore without looking weak. I've spent the season weaving myself into the fabric of the world above Haldron. The royal commission is the thread that ties it off. Haldron can still send his men, but now if those men succeed, he doesn't inherit a mine. He inherits a scandal that reaches the throne, and I've made sure by every gift and every jewel and every whispered name that the throne would take it personally. Jonah cuts the royal piece as though his whole life were only practice for it, and it's the finest thing his hands have ever made. And when it goes up to the capital under guard, I know I've built the political armor that no amount of Haldron's soldiers can pierce. Whatever happens at the wall now, I've already won the war above it. I just have to survive the wall, and the wall is coming fast. I don't let the jeweler's court distract from the iron. I deepen both at once, because a lord at this level fights on every front, or loses on the one he neglected. While Jonah cuts for kings, I pour coin into the works themselves. Better machines, faster washing, higher yields, so that even as I fortify I'm growing richer, and richer means more men on the wall, more supplies stockpiled, more everything to meet what's coming. Wash tables run day and night now under guard. The fire settling in the traps by the barrel, and the enterprise that started as one bleeding man in a hole has become a marvel of water and iron that a whole valley depends on, and the valley is the other arm. The brindle folk I hired after the reveal, the ones who laughed at me a year ago and now eat off my works, they're not just labor anymore. They're eyes and they're loyal. When Haldron's men come, they'll come to a place where 100 families have a stake in the walls standing, where the workers themselves would sooner shut the gate on a wolf than open it. Carol runs the sorting floor of that whole community now. The girl who swept Vessa's shop for coppers commands a floor of workers, trusted, respected, risen entirely with me. Darius manages every sale and every coin that flows through Pell's houses, a wealthy partner, now my second self in all things. Jonah rules the cutting house and his name reaches the throne. Each of them lifted from ruin, each of them bound to me, not by fear but by the plain fact that their lives are better because mine is, and every one of them will stand when the wolves come, because it's their house too now. That's the thing Haldron can't see from his cold old hall. He thinks he's coming to rob one clever peasant. He's coming to a place defended by everyone in it. Rask and I plan the defense over the crude little map the spy drew. Haldren's own map of our walls, now turned into the blueprint of his defeat. Here's the beauty of it, Rask says, spreading it on my table. And his hard finger traces the estate. He thinks he knows the ground. This map tells him where our walls are strong and where they're thin, where the gates are, where the guard stands. So he'll plan his raid around it, hit the thin places, come at the gates he thinks he knows, avoid where we're strong. He'll walk in confident, because he's got a map. Rask looks up at me and there's that hard, grim smile again, which means we know exactly where he's coming, he's told us. And a raider who thinks he knows the ground, who comes fast and confident in the dark expecting an easy grab of an undefended mine. He taps the map. That's a raider we can steer. Show a man a weakness and he runs at it. If we choose which weakness he sees, we choose where he runs. And here is where 2 years of building water and stone into an industry becomes 2 years of building water and stone into a weapon. And I finally understand what I've made, because I didn't just build a works. I built a place ruled by controlled water. The diversion channel off the river, the sluices, the wash tables, the flooded troughs. The whole estate is threaded with water I can open and close and steer at will. And the terrain itself, the hard stone, the walls, the narrow ways between the works, is a maze I built and know to the inch, and Haldren doesn't. He thinks the water is just machinery. He thinks the stone is just walls. He has no idea that the man he's coming to rob spent 30 years learning exactly how water moves through and over ground, and has spent 2 years building ground designed without either of us knowing it at the time to be perfect for turning against an enemy. The thin place on his map, I say slowly, tracing it. The plan assembling in my head the way plans do, complete and clear. The approach he'll pick. What's below it? The lower works, Rask says. The wash channels, the flood troughs, which I control from the sluice house. I look at him. So we don't defend the thin place. We invite him into it. We leave it looking exactly as weak as his map says. We let his men pour through where he expects an easy way in, and we funnel them down into the lower works, into the narrow ways between the wash channels, where the walls I built to hold water become walls that hold men. And when they're in it, packed into the choke points, thinking they're winning, I feel the cold clarity, the old clarity, sharp as ever. I open the sluices, the whole diversion all at once into the flood troughs and the channels. The water I panned for 30 years and built into an industry, it comes down on them like the river coming down a bank, in the dark, in ground they don't know, packed in tight where they can't run. Not to drown them, though some may drown. To break them. To turn their fast, confident raid into 100 men floundering waist-deep in cold water in the dark, trapped between stone walls, while your archers stand dry on the high works above, and your men hold the choke points they can't get through. Rask is silent a moment, reading it, the soldier in him testing it for flaws. And then slowly he nods, and the grim smile widens. The choke points barred, the high ground held, the low ground flooded on command. He looks at me with something that's gone past approval into respect. You don't win by having more men, Shota. You win by making the ground itself fight for you. He brings soldiers to a mine. He doesn't know he's marching into a machine built to swallow him. He taps the map. It's not a wall, it's a trap the size of an estate. He drew us the map of how to spring it. We build it over the next weeks. Rask bars the choke points so they can be shut fast and held by few against many. He drills his men to fall back on cue, to bait Haldren's raiders down into the low works, to hold the high ground with bow and blade while the water does the breaking. I ready the sluice house myself, testing the flow again and again in the dark, learning to the heartbeat how long it takes the water to fill the troughs, exactly when to open the gates so it comes down on men and not on empty stone. Every drill I run, I feel it more certainly. The thing I built to pull diamonds out of the ground is going to pull an army into it, and I let the thin place look thin. I even subtly make it look thinner, pull a guard post back where the spy's map showed one, so that any watcher Haldren sends now sees the weakness confirmed, sees the easy way in, sees exactly what we want him to see. The oldest trick I know, the one that's kept me alive from the start. Don't fight the fact that an enemy is looking. Decide what he sees when he looks. It comes on a moonless night, as Rask always said it would. The last spy Haldren sends never gets close. Rask's vetting is too good now, and the man is taken quietly on the road 2 days before, and from him Rask rings the timing. A night raid, soon. A large force, more men than I feared. Haldren has emptied his purse for this, hired every hard sword he could find, meaning to overwhelm the works fast and settle everything by dawn with possession in hand and a bandit tail ready. He's committed. There's no legal path left to him, so he's staking everything on the one move. I've had 2 years to prepare for. We're ready. The word comes at last from the outriders Rask has set on every road. Men moving in the dark. A large force, coming up from the district seat toward the valley, coming exactly the way the map says, toward the thin place, in the black of a moonless night, fast and quiet and confident. I stand in the sluice house with my hand on the gates, in the dark, and Rask is at the choke points with his men, and the archers are on the high works, and the water is banked up behind the diversion, held, waiting, all the weight of the river I panned for 30 years, poised over the ground an enemy is about to walk into. Darius is beside me, because he wouldn't be anywhere else, and his honest face is tight in the dark. 2 years ago you were a man crying into a hole, he murmurs. Now there's a baron marching an army at you in the night, and you're standing here calm as stone with your hand on a river. I'm not calm, I say. I'm terrified. But I know this ground, Darius. I know every foot of it. I built it. And he thinks he's coming to rob a fool. I tighten my grip on the gate. Let him come. Let him walk his men right down into the place I built to swallow them. And when they're in it, I look out into the black toward the thin place, toward the coming sound of it, the first far tramp of many feet in the dark. When they're in it, I give them the river. Out in the dark, at the thin place on Haldren's own map, the first of his men reach the wall we left weak, and find it as weak as they were promised, and pour through into the low works, into the narrow ways between the wash channels, into the ground that was built, though none of them know it yet, to be their grave. The raid has come, and I'm not the man they think I am. I haven't been for a long time. They came expecting a mine to rob. They walked into a machine built to swallow them, and I'm the man with his hand on the lever. The first of Haldren's men pour through the thin place exactly as the map promised, and I hear it from the sluice house in the dark, the scrape and rush of many feet finding an easy way in, the low grunts of hard men who think they've caught a sleeping prize. They come fast and quiet and confident, and they pour down into the low works, into the narrow ways between the wash channels, drawn by a weakness I built for them, and I stand with my hand on the gate and I make myself wait. That's the hardest part. Waiting. Every instinct screams open it now, before they're closer, before they're too many, but the whole plan is timing. And if I open too soon, the water spends itself on empty stone and the men come on dry. So I wait, and I count them by sound, and I let them come, deeper and deeper into the trap, and I feel the weight of the whole banked river straining behind the gate under my hand. Up on the high works, Rask's men are silent. That's the discipline he drilled into them. Not a sound, not an arrow, nothing to warn the raiders that this is anything but the easy grab they were promised. So Haldren's men come on unopposed, and their confidence grows with every step, and I hear it turn to the loose, careless spread of men who've decided they've already won. They fan out through the lower works. They start toward the wash tables and the traps where the diamonds settle, greedy now, thinking of the fortune, thinking of the plunder, the very greed I counted on, drawing them deeper, packing them into the narrow channels where the walls I built to hold water are about to hold men. Rask's plan does the rest. His forward men, hidden, give ground, not fleeing, but falling back on cue. The way he drilled them, a handful of guards making just enough resistance to look real, and then yielding, retreating up toward the high works, baiting the raiders to chase. Haldren's men chase, they smell a rout. They pour after the retreating guards, down the last of the narrow ways, into the deepest choke of the lower works, into the killing ground, thinking they're breaking the last thin resistance between them and the treasure. They're not breaking anything, they're filling the trap. And the guards, they think they're routing, reach the barred choke points at the top of the low works and pass through them. And behind them, Rask's men slam the bars shut, heavy, fast, barring the only ways out of the low ground, and in one heartbeat, Haldren's raiders go from an attacking force pouring in to 100 men packed into a stone maze with the doors shut behind them. That's my signal. The bars going shut. I open the river. I throw the sluice gates wide, all of them, all at once. And the whole banked weight of the diversion, the river I panned for 30 years, built into an industry, and now aimed at an army, comes down into the flood troughs and the wash channels in a black roar. It comes exactly as I planned it, because I've run this in the dark 100 times and I know to the heartbeat how the water fills the low works. It floods the narrow channels first, the deepest choke where the raiders are packed thickest, and it comes fast. Cold and dark and irresistible, the way water comes down a bank. Exactly the way I watched 1,000 rivers move while the world laughed at me. In seconds, the men who a moment ago were pouring greedily toward the treasure are floundering waist-deep, then chest-deep, in freezing water and pitch dark, in narrow stone ways they don't know, packed too tight to run, with the bars shut behind them and the walls close on either side. The confident raid ends in the space of a breath. I hear it change. The greedy grunts turn to shouts, the shouts to cries of alarm, the alarm to the ragged animal panic of men who came to rob, and are now drowning in the dark in a place they can't understand. They can't see, they can't run, they can't fight. There's no one to fight. Only water and stone and the black. Some go down and don't come up. I made peace, in the planning, with the fact that some would drown, because they came in the night to murder me and take everything I built, and I gave them every chance to walk in easy, and I mean to give them no chance now to walk out. But it isn't drowning. I built this for, it's breaking, and it breaks them. 100 hard-hired swords turned in an instant into 100 terrified men trying only to survive the water. All fight gone out of them, all order dissolved. And that's when Rask's men, dry and rested, and holding the high works above the flood, open up. The archers loose down into the packed floundering mass, not a slaughter, but enough to make the choke points a place no man dares climb toward. Enough to hold the raiders down in the flooded low ground where they can neither advance nor escape. Rask's guardsmen hold the barred choke points against the few who fight their way to them, and against men floundering waist-deep, exhausted, panicked, blind in the dark. A few fresh defenders on dry high ground behind bars are worth 10 times their number. I gave up the advantage of numbers by choice, long ago, when I decided I'd win by making the ground fight for me. And the ground fights. The ground I built swallows Haldren's army the way I built it to swallow gravel, sorting the strong from the beaten, and by the time the first gray of dawn touches the works, there's no raid left. Only 100 defeated men, half-drowned, weaponless, packed in cold water in the low works, throwing down their arms and crying for quarter. Isn't clean. I want to be honest about that, because a victory that costs nothing is a story a fool tells, and I'm not that fool anymore. We take losses. Not the massacre it would have been if Haldren's men had caught us sleeping, but real ones. Choke point holds, but the men who held it don't all live through it. 2 of Rask's guards fall there. Hard men who took Haldren's hired swords face to face while the water did its work behind. A dozen more are wounded, some badly. And the works themselves are hurt. The flood I loosed to break the raid also breaks things I built. Wash tables torn loose, channels caved, the sluice house strained near to failing, a season's careful engineering damaged in the one night it was turned to war. The water that saved me did not care what it broke on the way. I'll be weeks repairing it, and coin I'd have spent growing goes instead to fixing what I flooded. Rask comes to me in the gray dawn, soaked, bloodied at one arm, grim and steady, and he doesn't dress it up. We held, we broke them clean. They'll not raid again. This lot's finished. But I lost 2 good men at the low choke, and more are hurt, and the lower works are half wrecked. He looks at me levelly. It cost Shota. Winning always costs. Anyone who tells you a defense is free never held a wall. He says it not as reproach, but as a soldier telling a truth, and I take it as one. I go and look at the 2 who fell. I make myself do it. Not turn away, not let them be numbers. They died on my wall, holding a choke point so the ground I built could swallow an army. And I stand over them in the gray light, and I understand, in a way I didn't fully before, that everything I've built has a price paid in more than coin, and that a lord who forgets that becomes a Haldren, spending men like coin and throwing the broken in a ditch. I won't be that. I'll bury these 2 with honor, and see their families kept out of my own hand for the rest of their lives. It's the least a man can do, and it's the difference between me and the man who sent them to die. The victory is real. I broke Haldren's raid without an army of my own, by turning water and stone into a weapon, by getting to the ground first and knowing it to the inch. But it's a hard victory, a costly one, and I don't let myself feel it as triumph. I feel it as survival, dearly bought. And then Rask brings me the thing that turns survival into victory of a different, larger kind. The thing that means those 2 men didn't die only to hold a wall for a night, but to win the whole war above the wall. Among the 100 beaten men we've pulled out of the water and disarmed, there are some who aren't hired swords at all, men of Haldren's own household, and one in particular, a captain of the Baron's own guard, taken alive at the choke, who Rask recognizes at once. Not a masterless bandit, not a hired stranger who could plausibly be called anything. Haldren's own sworn man, in Haldren's livery under the mud, leading an armed force onto a chartered, crown-favored works in the dead of night. This is it, Rask says quietly, and for once there's something almost like awe in his hard voice. This is what breaks him. He meant to seize the works and call it bandits. Masterless men. Nothing to do with him. A tragedy. But he can't call it bandits now. We've got his own captain, in his own colors, taken alive on your ground. We've got 100 prisoners who'll swear who paid them and who led them. We've got the coin purses and the orders. He looks at me. You didn't just beat his raid Shota, you caught him. Red-handed. An unlawful armed assault by a lord's own household guard on a works the crown itself has chartered and favors. The grim smile. The night he sent his men to bury you is the night he handed you the rope to hang him with, and I feel it settle the whole shape of the 2 years clicking into place. Because this is the thing I built the jeweler's court for. This is the thing the royal charter was for, and the royal commission, and every jewel I sent up the ladder of the world with my name on it. I didn't just make myself rich enough to defend. I made myself connected enough that Haldren's crime against me is a crime against the crown, and I've just captured the living red-handed proof of it. Haldren's own captain in Haldren's own colors, caught in an armed raid on a crown-favored enterprise. Haldren staked everything on being able to do this in the dark and deny it in the light. And I've taken his deniability and drowned it in the low works along with his army. He thought he was seizing a mine. He's given me his own head. I don't waste an hour. Speed has been my weapon from the first. Get to the higher law before the Lord can reach the local courts, and I use it now, harder than ever. I gather the proof, all of it, and I gather it carefully, the way Pell in 2 years of learning taught me. The captured captain, secured under Rask's guard. The prisoner's testimony taken down and witnessed. The purses of Haldren's coin. Any orders or tokens found on the household men. The whole undeniable weight of an unlawful armed assault by a lord's own guard on a chartered works. Documented, witnessed, airtight. The way I made the claim airtight. The way I made everything airtight. The moment I learned that the law is a weapon for the man who wields it best. And then I send it not to Haldren's district courts, which are Haldren's and would bury it, but straight past him up the ladder I've spent a season climbing, to the crown itself. To the royal authority that granted my charter, that commissioned my jewels, that knows my name and wears Jonah's work at court. I send the proof of the raid, and with it I send a reminder they cannot ignore, that a lord entrusted with a district has led his own household guard in an armed assault on a crown-chartered, crown-favored enterprise, and that a crown which lets such a thing pass looks weak before every other lord who might think a royal charter is only paper. I've made myself over 2 years into a man the crown values. Now I hand the crown a reason to act, and a scandal it cannot afford to ignore, and the living red-handed proof to act upon, and I make it the crown's own interest to destroy Baron Haldren, so that I never have to face him with swords again. Darius watches me seal it and shakes his head slowly. The awning thieves in Delwick cheated you 2 silver for a diamond, and now you're sending a packet to the crown that ends a baron. Same man. He grips my shoulder. 2 years, Shota. Same man, I agree, just further along. And I hand the sealed proof to Rask's fastest, most trusted rider, bound for the capital, and I watch him go out through the gates of the fortress I built from a dry well, carrying the thing that turns my costly survival into Haldron's ruin. The dawn brightens over the works, the wrecked lower channels, the exhausted men, the 2 I'll bury with honor, the 100 prisoners, the water finally draining back where I'll steer it. It's a hard morning, and I don't pretend otherwise. Winning cost, it always costs. Rask was right about that from the first. But I stand at the high works and look down at the ground I built, the ground that swallowed an army in the night, and I feel the change in the world under my feet as surely as I felt it the night I struck the seam. 2 years ago, a shopwoman's suspicion could have killed me. A season ago, a baron's summons made me ride in dread to a cold hall to be tested. And last night, that baron sent his whole strength against me in the dark, and I met it, and broke it, and caught him in the breaking, and sent his ruin up to the crown before the sun was fully up. I'm not the underdog anymore. I felt it turn last night, in the sluice house with my hand on the river. All the years of being weaker than the world, the mocked fool, the lone man in the hole, the peasant tested in a lord's hall, they're behind me now. I built water and stone into an industry, and the industry into a weapon, and the weapon just broke the man who owns everything for 100 miles. The ground fought for me because I made it mine to the last inch. The crown will move for me because I made myself worth moving for. The valley stood for me because I made their lives worth defending. Rask comes to stand beside me, bloodied and grim, and, in his hard way, satisfied. He'll have heard by now that his raid failed, he says. By tomorrow he'll know his captain's taken and his crimes proven. And in a few days, he nods toward the road where the rider's dust is settling. He'll learn it's gone to the crown, and there's not a court in his district that can save him, because it's not in his district anymore. It's above him. He looks at me. You've done it, Shota. You beat him at law, and he came at you with swords, and you beat him at that too. And now you're about to beat him at the one thing left, which is standing itself. When that packet reaches the throne, Baron Haldron's finished. Not finished yet, I say, watching the road. But he will be. I've spent 2 years making sure that when this day came, I wouldn't have to face him with an army. I'd face him with the crown. I look down at my works, my valley, my people, all of it held, all of it mine, dearly bought and standing. He thought he was the top of my world. He's about to learn there was always a bigger world above us both, and I got there first. Out on the road, the rider carrying Haldron's ruin crests the far hill and is gone toward the capital, and the sun clears the ridge, and the fire settles in the traps that still stand, and I turn to see to my wounded and bury my dead, a lord, now in truth as well as name, standing over the ground where he broke an army, waiting for the crown to finish what the river began. Baron Haldron spent his whole life believing he was the top of the world. He's about to learn from the crown's own hand that he was only ever a wolf who wandered onto ground that belonged to a bigger power, and that I got to that power first. The rider reaches the capital, and the proof does exactly what I built 2 years to make it do, because the packet doesn't land on a stranger's desk. It lands in a court that knows my name, that wears Jonah's jewels, that granted my charter and commissioned my work, a court already disposed to value the Diamond Lord of the Valley, and now handed undeniable proof that one of its own lords led an armed assault by his household guard on a crown-favored enterprise. It isn't only my grievance anymore, it's the crown's insult. A lord who thinks a royal charter is just paper, who sends soldiers in the night against a man the throne itself has favored, is a lord telling every other lord in the kingdom that the crown's word means nothing, and a crown cannot let that stand. That was the whole of my calculation, from the day I first heard Haldron's name, make my ruin into the crown's embarrassment, and the crown will destroy the man who caused it, so I never have to. The crown moves faster than even I hoped, because I've given it no room to move slowly. There's no drawn-out trial in Haldron's own district courts, where he might have bought or bullied his way clear. I sent the proof past all that to the one authority above him, and the one authority above him has no interest in mercy for a lord who made it look weak. A royal commission comes down to the district. Haldron's captured captain testifies, and cannot deny his own colors. The 100 prisoners swear who paid them and who led them. The purses of Haldron's coin, the household men, the whole airtight weight of it. I made it airtight. The way I made everything airtight from the moment I learned the law, is a weapon. Leaves the baron nowhere to stand. I'm summoned to the reckoning, not as a supplicant this time. As the crown-favored party wronged the Diamond Lord whose chartered works were assaulted, and I ride to the district seat in the finest I own with Rask at my side and a proper retinue, back to the very hall where Haldron once made me walk its long humbling length to be tested. Only now it's Haldron who stands to be judged, and me who's honored, and the whole hall knows it before a word is spoken. He's brought before the royal commission in that cold hall his family ruled for generations, and I watch the man who tried to seize everything I built face the one power he can't outwit or outweight. He tries. Of course he tries. He's clever, and cornered men are dangerous, and I brace for the same silken maneuvering he showed me the day I first came before him. He denies. He blames rogue elements, masterless men who stole his colors, a plot against him. He's smooth and practiced, and to a lesser court he might even have sown enough doubt to survive. But it isn't a lesser court. It's the crown's, and the crown didn't come to be persuaded. It came because a lord made it look weak, and it means to make an example that no other lord forgets. And every denial Haldron makes breaks against the proof I built. His own captain, in his own livery, taken alive on my ground. His own coin in the raiders. Purses, 100 sworn men. There's no silken argument that survives your own captain testifying to your own order. I watch Haldren realize, degree by degree, exactly what I realized in his hall a season ago, that words and law have limits, and that the man who reaches the higher power first wins, and that this time the higher power isn't his. The judgment when it comes is total. Baron Haldren is stripped of his standing, his lands, his title, everything. The family that ruled the district for generations ends in an afternoon. In the very hall it built, undone by the peasant it summoned to be tested and thought to devour. His lands and authority pass from him. The predator who owned everything for 100 miles owns nothing at all. The crown in the same stroke confirms and elevates the man he tried to destroy. My charter reaffirmed, my works secured, my standing raised. The Diamond Lord of the Valley now a favored man of the crown in name as well as fact. I could feel triumph, standing in that cold hall watching Haldren stripped bare. 2 years ago I'd have expected to. But what I feel, watching the man who ruined my aunt's kind of people, who tried to murder me in the dark and take everything I built from a dry well, what I feel is something quieter and harder than triumph. It's the settled weight of a thing done right. I face him once before he's taken away. He's not smooth anymore. The cold, still face is gone, and what's under it is just a beaten man, a wolf who miscalculated and lost everything for it. And there's a hatred in his eyes that would kill me where I stand if hatred were a blade. You, he says low, a peasant, a village fool with a hole in the ground. You've cost me everything my blood built. No, I say, and I say it plainly without cruelty, because I'm long past needing cruelty. You cost yourself everything, my lord. The night you decided a royal charter was just paper and sent your men to bury me. I beat you at law and I offered you no cause for what you did. You came at me with swords anyway. I only made sure that when you did, the crown would care. I hold his hatred without flinching. I've been robbed before. My uncle's estate, taken off a widow in broad daylight by men who thought no law would stop them, and laughed doing it. I decided a long time ago that would never happen to me. So I made the law my wall instead of my enemy. That's the whole of it. You could have left me be. You couldn't. And now you're the one the law came for. He has no answer. There's no answer to make. He's taken away, stripped and finished, and I watch him go. The man who thought he was the top of my world, and I feel the last of the fear I carried into this hall a season ago drain out of me for good. I'm not the underdog anymore. I stopped being the underdog the night the river came down on his army. But here, in this hall, watching the crown confirm what the water began, I become something else entirely. The true power in this district, in name and law and fact. Standing where a baron ruled for generations, raised up by the very crown. Haldren thought too far away to matter. Haldren's fall doesn't fall alone. That's the thing about a web of lies and schemes. Pull the strongest thread and the whole thing unravels. And Haldren was strong enough that his ruin drags down every smaller predator who tangled themselves in his shadow. Colm goes first, and Colm's fall is almost too small to notice, which is exactly its cruelty. The smug traitor Mira ran off with, who took my wife because I couldn't dig a well. His little schemes were always shallow, and he'd overreached and gone broke sooner than he expected even before any of this. Word reaches me, through Darius's endless network of towns and talk, that Colm has failed at whatever grand thing he promised Mira, that the house in Harrow with the roof that doesn't leak was mortgaged and gone, that the man who won my wife by having a trade and coin has neither anymore. Drifts into the general collapse of the district's small crooked men as the crown's officers sweep in behind Haldren's fall, and his comeuppance isn't dramatic. It's just this. He married a woman who left a man for being poor and became poor himself, while that same man became a lord received by kings. There's no punishment I could design that's crueler than that plain fact, and I didn't have to lift a finger to arrange it. And Vessa's ruin I take a quieter satisfaction in, because Vessa earned it over years, in small daily cruelties, and it comes for her the same way. Small, daily, total. Because when the crown's officers come to settle the district and root out Haldren's corruption, they find the whole web of it, and Vessa's part in the old crime surfaces along with the rest. Not the diamonds. She never knew about those. That's the joke that will follow her to her grave. But the merchants who robbed my widowed aunt of my uncle's estate, the swindle done in broad daylight because a widow had no standing. Those merchants were part of the same crooked network the district ran on, the same network Haldren sat atop, and Vessa was a spoke in that wheel too, a gossip and a schemer who'd had her fingers in more than one cruelty over the years. When the wheel comes apart, her lies come apart with it. Her role in the old thefts, her whispering, her position as the poison at the center of every story in Brindle, all of it, laid bare, as the honest reckoning sweeps through the valley. And here is the sweet exactness of it. Vessa's whole power was her tongue. Her standing in Brindle was that she was believed that her words shaped every story, that she sat at the center of the valley's talk and turned it wherever she liked. That's what she used to poison Mira against me. That's what she used to orchestrate my humiliation in the square. Now that power is not just gone but reversed. The woman who was believed is exposed as a liar and a schemer. The woman at the center of every story is now the story, the shameful one, the one everyone whispers about. She's ruined and shunned in the very village she ruled by gossip. The laughter she aimed at me for 2 years turned fully and finally on her. I don't lift a hand in it. I don't have to. I've learned the best revenge is the one you don't administer. You simply build a world where honesty wins and the crooked fall, and then you step back and let them fall. Vessa spent 2 years mocking the richest man in the district and building his disguise for free, and now she gets to live out her days in the village where everyone knows she laughed at a fortune and never saw it, and schemed cruelty and got caught. The success was always the revenge. This is just the accounting, And Mira, I think about the most in a strange way because Mira is the one whose regret I didn't design and can't take satisfaction in the way I can with Vesa. She wasn't cruel the way Vesa was cruel. She was practical and worn down and honest to the bone even when the truth was a blade. She told me to my face she married me for money and left me for a man with a trade. And every word of it was true. And I've come to understand, across 2 years, that it wasn't malice in her. It was exhaustion. It was a woman one bad harvest from ruin, who couldn't spend her life waiting for a fool to strike gold in a valley that had none. She comes to the reckoning. Or rather, she's there, in the district seat, in the crowd that gathers when the Diamond Lord is honored, and the Baron is stripped, because the whole district turns out for a thing that size, and she's part of the whole district now, Calm's broke wife, a woman with nothing. Come to see the spectacle like everyone else. And I see her in the crowd, married now to a poor man who failed her, watching the man she left for being poor be honored by the crown, raised to a lord, confirmed the true power of the very district she couldn't wait out. I watched the full weight of it settle on her. Not cruelty, not gloating, just the plain unbearable arithmetic of what she abandoned. She left because I couldn't dig her a well. And the well I dug the night she left held a fortune under it, and everything she despaired of ever coming from me came, all of it, and more than she could have dreamed, to a man she'd already walked away from. She traded me for a trade and coin, and I became the richest man in the district, and Colm became nothing. And she's standing in the mud watching it, powerless, too late, forever. I don't speak to her. There's nothing to say that the facts don't say better. But our eyes meet once, across the crowd, for just a moment, and I don't put anything into the look. No cruelty, no triumph, not even reproach. I just let her see me as I am now, and let her see that I see her, and then I look away, because I'm done with her. Truly done, in a way I couldn't have been if I'd hated her. The grief that dug that well 2 years ago is long gone. What's left is only the plain fact of 2 lives that went in opposite directions from the same night, and hers is the harder road, and I didn't choose it for her. She chose it. I just built the other one. That, I think, is the difference between mercy and weakness, and it's a thing I've learned in these 2 years. I show mercy where it costs me nothing. I don't crush Mira. I don't hound Colm. I don't add cruelty to the fall of people already fallen. But I show iron where it counts, Haldren stripped to nothing, because a wolf that comes at you in the dark gets no mercy or you don't survive to give it. Knowing the difference is what makes a lord instead of a Haldren, and I mean to be the first and not the second. I ride home to the fortress with the district settled behind me, and it's a different ride than the one to Haldren's summons a season ago. Then I rode in dread, tested uncertain. Now I ride as the confirmed power of the whole district. Haldren's lands and authority passing into a new order, I sit at the head of. The crown's favor secured, my work safe, my people held, every rival resolved. Rask rides beside me, and even his hard face has something like ease in it. The ease of a soldier whose war is won. It's done, he says. The Baron's finished. His schemes, the gossip woman's, the traitors, all of it come apart. There's not a wolf left in this district that can touch you, Shota. You've beaten everyone, at law, at war, and at standing. You're not a man defending what he built anymore. You're the man everyone else answers to now. And it's true. I feel it settle, complete. The whole 2-year arc of it clicking shut. The mocked fool who wept into a dry well, the lone man in the hole one dropped stone from death, the peasant tested in a cold hall, the lord who broke an army with a river, and now this, the true power of the district, confirmed by the crown, standing above the world that once laughed at me, every rival fallen, every threat resolved, the whole of it earned not by force but by 2 years of getting to the higher ground first, every single time. Darius meets me at the gate and he's grinning, but there's something in his honest face beyond the grin, something that's watched the whole journey from the night I chased him off my step with a shovel, and he grips my shoulder hard. You did it, he says quietly. All of it. The Baron. The whole rotten web of them. And you did it without becoming one of them. I watched you spare the woman and hound the wolf, and know the difference. He shakes his head, wondering. 2 years ago you were crying in a hole, Shota. Now you're the lord of the whole district. And you're still you. That's the part that gets me. You're still you. Still me, I agree. Looking up at the walls, gold in the evening light, the works running safe behind them, the valley quiet in mine. Just finally on the winning side of it. And I stand at the gate of the castle I built from a dry well, the true power of the district now, every wolf broken, and I let myself feel it at last. Not triumph exactly, but completion. The world that mocked me is silent. The men who tried to take everything have nothing. And everything I built, from one bleeding man in a hole to a lord received by the crown, stands whole and safe in mine. There's only one thing left to do now, and it isn't to fight anyone. It's to look back at how far I've come, and finally, after 2 years, to rest. 2 years ago I was the biggest fool in the Valley of Brindle, weeping into a hole while the whole street laughed. Today kings send for me by name, and the strangest part is that both of those men are me, and I can trace every single step between them. I'm a lord now, in truth and in law, titled, landed, confirmed by the crown, the settled power of a district where a baron's family ruled for generations and now rule nothing. And the thing I've dreaded and dreamed of in equal measure has come to pass. I'm received by kings, not summoned to be tested in a cold hall to see if I'll break, received. As a man of standing, whose jewels are worn at court, whose name opens palace doors that a mud-poor prospector staring at a wool merchant's wife's pea-sized diamond could never in his wildest dreaming have imagined he'd walk through. I go to court, once, that season, because a lord received by kings must go, and I stand in halls grander than anything Haldren ever built. and I watched the great of the kingdom wear jewels off Jonah's wheel. The fire I first saw glittering in the wall of a dry well by lantern light, cut and set and shining now on the hands of queens. And I think standing there in the highest hall in the kingdom of the exact night it started, a shovel, tears on my face, a whole village laughing, and stone at 5 meters that wasn't stone. Every step from that hole to this hall, I walked myself, not by luck. The luck was only the seam, and the seam would have gotten me robbed and killed if I'd been the fool they thought I was. By thinking, by getting to the higher ground first, every time. By turning my humiliation into a wall, my enemies into my alibi, water into an industry and an industry into a weapon, and the law into a thing that served me, instead of the men who'd always used it against people like me. I don't stay long at court. I've seen it now. The world above Delwick that I once glimpsed and never dreamed I'd enter, it's mine to enter whenever I like. That's enough. What I want, it turns out, isn't to live in that world. What I want is to go home, to the valley, to the thing I actually built with my own hands, and stand in the middle of it, and finally, after 2 years, take stock of how far I've come. So I go home, and I walk the works, and I let myself look at all of it the way I've never let myself look. Not as a man planning the next danger, but as a man who's already won, taking the measure of what winning built. The mining works run like a marvel now, repaired and better than ever after the flood, the wash tables and channels humming, the river I panned for 30 years, pouring diamonds out of the ground by the hour, water and iron working together the way I first dreamed them in the dark at the bottom of a hole. What took one bleeding man a night by lantern light, the works now do 100-fold cleanly, safely, endlessly. The seam runs deep and wide under the whole field and beyond, out under the ground nobody wanted, a lifetime of fortune and 10 lifetimes after that. The thing I built from a shovel and a formula I taught myself watching rivers is now the greatest diamond enterprise the kingdom has ever seen, and it's mine, whole and safe, no wolf left who can touch it. The cutting house is a jeweler's court now, the most prestigious in the realm, and its heart is old Jonah, and this is one of the things I've come home to see, because the closing of Jonah's story is as sweet to me as any jewel he's cut. I find him at his wheel, where he always is, and his ruined old eyes are worse than ever, but his hands are as steady as the day I met him over the tallow boiler. And around him now are apprentices he trains, a whole workshop cutting under his eye. His methods and his 40 years passing into younger hands, so his art outlives him. He's famous now, Master Jonah, the greatest cutter in the kingdom, whose name is spoken at court, whose work sits in the crown's own jewels. The proud fallen master who was faking gems for peddlers to keep bread on the table, who I found half blind and shabby in a rented room that smelled of rendered fat, is restored, fully, gloriously, to fame and honor and the work he was born for. Well, boy, he says, not looking up from the stone under his wheel, though he knows my step. Come to admire your investment? Come to admire my friend, I say, and I mean it. And the old man's steady hands pause for just a moment. You gave me my life back, Jonah says, quiet, still not looking up, because a proud old man says such things sideways or not at all. I'd have died over that tallow boiler faking paste for peddlers, and no one would have remembered old Jonah ever cut a real stone. Instead, he holds up the jewel he's working, and the fire leaps off it and scatters light across the whole workshop. Instead, I'll die with my name in the crown's own jewels and these lads carrying my hands forward after I'm gone. A man doesn't get a redemption like that. You gave me one. His ruined eyes find me at last, fierce and wet. Don't think I don't know it, and don't think I'd have cut a single stone for anyone else who came to that room with a diamond in a rag. It was you. It was because you told me the plain truth in a place where everyone lies. Now get out of my light. I've a queen's commission to finish, and half blind or not, I'll not have it said old Jonah botched a stone with the diamond lord looking over his shoulder. I laugh, and I leave him to his fire. His story closed. His talent that was wasting away over a peddler's paste. Now the crowning glory of the finest jeweler's court in the kingdom. Redemption, whole and earned. One of the best things I ever built, and I built it out of an old man everyone else had thrown away. Rask I find on the walls, because Rask is always on the walls, and Rask's story is closed too, in its own hard soldier's way. He's captain of a proud guard now, no longer a broken mercenary, with a limp doing hard work for hard men who cheat the pay and throw the wounded in a ditch, but the commander of a real force, well-armed, well-paid, loyal to the bone, the men who broke Haldron's army at the Low Choke and hold these walls that no wolf will ever come over again. And he's paid fair and on time and treated true every day, exactly as I promised him the day I hired him. The one thing every lord he ever served failed to do, the thing that made him stop fighting for men like them. District's quiet, he reports out of habit, though we both know it's more than quiet. It's settled, secure, mine, no wolves left. Haldron's finished, his network swept, the roads are safe as they've ever been. He looks out over the valley from the wall, and there's an ease in him I never saw. In the hard mercenary who first measured my walls and called me a fat lamb. You kept every word, he says, not looking at me. Fair pay on time, honest, to the day, too. 2 years. No lord I ever served kept his word 2 weeks. He's quiet a moment. I stopped fighting for men a long time ago. You gave me a man worth fighting for again, and a wall worth holding, and men worth leading who won't be spent like coin and thrown in a ditch. Hard face doesn't smile quite, but something behind it does. I'll hold this wall till I'm too old to climb it, and then I'll train the man who holds it after me. You built something here worth defending, Shota. It's the first thing I ever guarded that I'd have guarded for free. Coming from Rask, it's the longest speech he's ever made, and the highest honor he could pay. His story closed too. The hired sword who stayed bought, become the trusted captain of a lord who never once gave him cause to leave. Carol I find on the sorting floor, and her story is maybe the one I take the deepest pleasure in, because Carol started with the least and rose the furthest. The sharp, honest girl who swept Vessa's shop for coppers and cruelty, one bad harvest from ruin with an ailing mother and no dowry and too much backbone, she runs the whole sorting floor now. The floor she once would have swept, commanding a whole community of workers, respected, trusted, risen entirely with me. The best eye for a stone of anyone but Jonah. Her mother kept well and comfortable on Carol's wage. Her family lifted clean out of the mud. Her whole life turned from a dead end into something with a future. She sees me and grins. She's never lost the plain honesty that made me choose her. The girl who'd tell you the true price of a thing when a lie would serve her better, and who handed back a fortune caught in her apron when no one would ever have known. Come to check my numbers, my lord, she says, tart, because she's never once been afraid of me, and I love her for it. Come to see how the girl who swept Vessa's floor runs one of her own, I say. Something crosses her face at that Vessa's name, and I watch her take the full measure of how far she's come. Vessa, she says, and there's no cruelty in it. Just wonder. She used to make me sweep the same corner 3 times to spite me. Threw the coppers on the floor so I'd have to bend for them. And now everyone knows what she is now, and she's got nothing. And She looks around the sorting floor she commands, the community she runs, and shakes her head. I don't even hate her anymore. I just don't think about her. I've too much to do. She meets my eye, plain and true as ever. You gave me a way out, my lord. When no one else would look twice at a girl with no dowry and a sick mother. I'll not forget it, and I'll not stop earning it. This floor runs clean and honest because I run it. And it runs that way because you showed me a life where honest work pays. That's everything. That's my whole family's life. A brisk nod. The honesty softening into something warmer. Now, let me get back to it. I've a queen's stones to sort, and I'll not have Master Jonah blaming my floor if his commission's short a good one. I leave her to it, laughing. Her story closed too. The lowest, risen highest. The swept floor girl commanding a court's sorting floor. Lifted out of ruin and standing on her own 2 honest feet. And Darius. Darius I don't have to go find because Darius is where he always is. At my side, at the table, my partner in all things. The wealthy, trusted co-owner of everything we built. The plain honest man who never once learned to laugh at me. Who came with a lantern and left it on my fence post when I screamed at him. Who kept a pretty pebble in his pocket for 3 days. Just to try to make his broken friend smile. He's rich now. Richer than any dream a brindle farmer could hold, and it hasn't changed him a hair. Still plain, still honest as a fence post, still my friend before he's my partner. We sit at a good table now instead of a crooked one, but we sit the same way we always have, and he pours the ale, good ale now, not the bad stuff, though I half miss the bad stuff, and he raises his cup. 2 years, he says, the way he said it at every turning. 2 years ago you were crying in a hole and I was standing over you with a lantern and you told me to go home. He grins. Glad I didn't listen. Well, glad I listened enough to leave the lantern. You're the reason for all of it, I say. And I mean it. And it's a thing I've never quite said out loud. Not the diamonds. The diamonds were only luck, and luck would have gotten me robbed and killed if I'd stayed alone. You're the reason I wasn't alone. The night you stood in my yard with that stone in your palm, and I looked at your face and gambled everything on it. That was the real turning, not the seam. You, a man, can't build any of this alone, Darius. He goes mad in the dark with it, or he makes one mistake, and it kills him. You were the first stone in the wall. Everything else stood on that. Darius goes quiet, and his honest face works, because he's not a man for big words, and I've just handed him one. I only came to show you a pretty rock, he says gruffly, and try to get my friend back. You got him back? I say. And a good deal more than a pretty rock. And we drink, the 2 of us at a good table now. 2 men who've known each other since they were boys, and his story's closed too. The lonely well-wisher who never gave up on a friend, become the wealthy trusted partner who never betrayed and never will. Every arc closed, every ally lifted, every wolf broken, the district settled, the crown's favor secured, the works running safe, the valley quiet and mine. There's nothing left to fight. No new threat on the horizon. I've made sure of that. Made sure the crown's favor in my own walls and the loyalty of a whole valley leave no room for another Haldren to rise. It's done. Truly wholly done. So, on a quiet evening, I do the one thing I've saved for last. I walk to the old well. The crooked shack still stands beside it. I kept it all this time, and now I know why. And the well is still there. The dry well they laughed at me for digging. The hole my wife left me for. The hole where I struck stone at 5 meters and everything changed. It's a monument now, at the heart of my empire. cleaned, preserved, set about with good stone, but the same hole, the same shaft I lowered myself down by a notched ladder in the dark 2 years ago, with a fortune and a death sentence sewn into my coat. I stand at its edge in the evening light and I look down into it, and I look out at everything around it. The works, the walls, the cutting house, the whole glittering enterprise spread across the valley. The fire settling in the traps, the guard on the walls, the smoke rising from 100 homes of 100 families who eat off my table now. From a dry well to all of this. From the mocked fool weeping over a shovel to a man whose name opens palace doors. And I don't feel bitterness. That's the thing I notice standing there, and it's how I know I'm truly done. I could feel bitter. I earned bitterness. 2 years of it. A lifetime of it before that. I could stand here and think of Vessa's laughter and Mira's leaving and the whole village calling down my well and let it curdle, but it's gone. All of it. Somewhere in these 2 years the wound closed over, and what's left where the bitterness was is something quieter and better. Because the truth is this, and I've come to the well to finally understand it, the treasure was always under my feet. 30 years I searched every river and hill in the country for it, and it was 5 meters below my own house the whole time. The diamonds were only ever the smaller half of it. The other half, the half that mattered, was under my feet too, and I didn't know I had it until I was forced to use it. The strength to build, the wit to survive, the patience to hide, the nerve to reveal, the sense to make the law my wall and my enemies my alibi and water into a weapon, the judgment to know a friend worth gambling on and a wolf worth destroying. All of that was in me the whole time, wasted, unused, buried under 30 years of failure and a village's laughter. Every bit as buried as the seam, and every bit as real. The seam made me rich, but it was the other thing under my feet, the thing I didn't know I had, that let me keep it, and build on it, and rise. Any fool can find a fortune and lose it. I found one and became a lord. That wasn't the diamonds. That was me, the me that was always there, waiting, 5 meters down under the failure, for a reason to finally dig. I stand at the well's edge a long time in the quiet, and I let myself feel the whole distance of it, the shovel, the tears, the laughter, and now this, and the laughter of the village that rolled over me like water 2 years ago in the square, is gone. Long gone. Turned to silence, and then to a line at my gate, and then to 100 families eating off my table, and then to nothing at all, just the quiet of an evening in a valley that's mine. Darius comes to stand beside me at the well's edge, and he doesn't say anything, because there's nothing that needs saying, and we just look out at it together, in the last of the light, the diamond empire glittering in the valley, the fire settling in the traps, the whole of it whole and safe and finished. Every rival resolved, every friend lifted, the man made whole. Come on, Darius says finally, gently, ale's getting warm, and I take one last look down into the dry well that made me, the hole they laughed at, the monument at the heart of everything I built. And then I turn away from it, toward the good table and the good ale and the friend at my side and the quiet valley that's mine. And I go. Treasure was always under my feet, and so it turned out, was I.